Right, hell yeah. Okay, so this video is for Jack and Shayna. So Shayna writes in, my boyfriend Jack Taylor just broke his collarbone mountain biking and is a huge fan of your videos. When we were in the ER, he only requested to watch your videos, just like all of you listening right now. Hell yeah. So he's very down because they can't R1, and so they wanted me to make a video. Especially for Jack. Hell yeah. And so this video might be 2 hours. I think I'm going to label it The Future of R1. And it's cool because the future of R1 already happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It says what we got here. We have clip after clip. And hell yeah, you can kind of see, I don't really comment a lot on other people's videos just because I do my thing when it comes to R1. But hell yeah, this is going to be the first try of let's watch some clips. Alright, so hell yes, this is Zambezi, and this is the Air Spud. So let's just watch the clip, and I can always talk, you know what I mean? And I think it's good to see clips all the way through. Now the cool thing is we're going to watch the next clip is an R1 go into the same wave, and R1 just has some limitations because of its bigness, you know what I mean? And so the Spud is kind of the litmus test, I think, going forward for me when it comes to R1. And in this clip, what we're going to see is that the shortness of the Spud, and you can actually move the stern around. So a kayaker is going to, I'm just going to use the word modulate. That's the last time I'm going to use the word modulate. But hell yeah, they're going to move their stern through the back of that wave. It's going to slice. And so that's what you can do in the Air Spud. And I think, hell yeah, I mean, like, why couldn't you just have an R1 cockpit, and then when you look out to the back of your boat, it's just like that, pointedness of the Air Spud. All right, so hell yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to our next clip. Okay, hell yeah. And so I guess before we get to the other clip of the Zambezi, one of my favorite R1 boaters, Ben Lloyd, just kind of going for it. And he's surfing, so I really appreciate that because I get jealous over this surf. All the Colorado boaters are doing their surfs from the back of the boat. And this is cool. Like, you only have so many minutes and hours of your life that you can spend R1 rafting. And so you have to choose. Do I want to surf from the back? Do I want to surf from the middle? And hands down, the Colorado boaters, and this one in particular, crushing it with the back of the boat surfs. And in the other clips we're going to see, that's the last time I'm going to stutter too. Just joking. We're going to do that a lot. But hell yeah. I forget what we were talking about. But yeah, they crush it from the back of the boat. It's hella stable, you know what I mean? And so it's like, Ben's not doing anything, the boat is. No, I'm just joking. Hell yeah. Super jealous about this surf because and he's a righty, you know what I mean, which we can also talk about that. Sometimes it's not, yeah, let's just watch this all the way through. Sometimes it's not what are we talking about? Yeah, sometimes it's not R1 design. It's the fact that you're a lefty and that wave needs a righty. And that wave definitely needs a righty. All right, hell yeah. Okay, so this is Alex Storsion. Man, life's a dream because he lives hella far away on the Ocoee. He comes up to the Locksaw, and I just kind of do my thing, you know what I mean, and ran into him in like 2 or 3 opportune places. And then even got let's watch some clips. But hell yeah. Now, this, I'm not bringing this clip up just to show, a raft flip in a negative way. Hell no. I mean, to an R1 raft, that's a damn sticky hole. You know what I mean? And so it's just fascinating, though, that the Spud is just like, oh, I'll just get in there and do my thing. Because I want to relate this especially to R1 boats on the Stikine River. Like, everything on the Stikine is going to be breaking and hella steep like this. Whoops, sorry about that. And then the question is, like, how do we take this large boat, 10-foot boat, 11-foot boat, and still make it And I think what you do is just you do a V-shaped hole. You know what I mean? When you actually go to high side this, the low side of the boat should not be in the water. This side of the boat just shouldn't be in the water. And we try, like, you can actually push your body over here and you think you're doing it something. Nah, I mean, the torque, you know, it's a game of physics. Like, you can only apply so much static torque, where this is like hella dynamic. You have incoming mass and velocity pushing that tube. And hell yeah. All right, so we're done with this, but we're gonna show my favorite of this video. And so hopefully you can just kind of see these videos, you know, so I don't have to put everything in the description. But this hit was pretty sweet. I even commented on this. And so we're gonna watch it. This line. I said, hell yeah, sick line. But yeah, so big lines. You know, big laterals, left, right, you know what I mean? Like, even that was, let's, for the love of God, let's watch this all the way through. But you're going to have a big lateral on the left, but who knows? I see that lateral on another one on the left, but even just that right. So, you know, with these huge features, you always have to be jumping one side and the other. And that last hit right at the bottom, hell yeah. And this is what I love. I can't wait for more R1ers to tackle big water environments, because, like, you're going to ride this and you're going to move towards the middle. Like, this is a surf wave. If this was at your wave park, you'd be like, hell yeah, I'm surfing this way. And that's an optical illusion. I can talk and we can watch. Well, now we're going to pause. But anyway, so hell yeah, when you come into this wave, this is going to surf you. If you hit right here, you're going to be surfing. Now, it's an optical illusion because, sure, you're going to surf and then move this way. But even if you hit right here, you're going to end up right there. And so that's kind of fascinating that you do any of these. Third stutter of the video. Hell yeah, we'll get better. Hell yeah, you're going to run up onto this and still continue your downstream momentum. And it's not even, you don't even have to think of it as downstream. You're getting surfed right here. The boat stopped. Like, is your surf lateral? Yes, it is. And so, and is your incoming water going this way? Sure. So you're going to get surfed this way and you're going to get to that corner. So we're going to maybe watch this twice. And, but hell yeah. So I just thought that was pretty sweet. And this is the Air Puma. And I think it rides pretty stable. I was actually... Yeah, hell yeah. I was pretty impressed with this video. So we're going to be done with this. Hell yeah. I don't have a lot of my film in here, but this is Hermit, and I did a sneak line and tip over. And so this is my big regret because, you know what I mean? If you got big lines, hell yeah. You want to hit them down the center. But we're going to take a look at one boat, or I'll bring it up, that actually does a really sweet skirt, because rivers like the North Fork of the Payette, oh hell yeah, you know what I mean? You're going to be skirting that entire thing. And even the Class 5 boaters, like, that is just the line to actually do skirts. And so it's just fascinating. You don't think of it when you do skirts. So I'm just skirting this haystack wave. This is the biggest one in Hermit, of like the physics here. Well, this is a 45-degree angle. Like, obviously my boat's going to get tipped and tilted, and this is eddy current, and so it's just literally game over. I don't even think to high side when it's just like I just figure I'm going by a big wave, no big deal. So that's very fascinating. And that, you know, I'm glad life's about choosing your own adventure, and this one I want to do the skirt just because I thought if I did tip over, I could still hang on to my boat, and we actually do in this one. Okay, hell yeah, but enough of my footage. We're going to move on. So, the air spud is the good litmus test. This is a kayaker doing, well, let's just watch the whole thing. Doing a spin. So, you're going to do a spin first. So, you're going to do like a quick 180, and then you're going to be backwards. So, I'm going to bring this up because R1, when we are backward, I'm going to call that the fakie position. If you're a skateboarder, when you go fakie in a skateboard, then your leading foot is like ready to do like a nollie, or you know what I mean, like it's at the new front of the board. And so like when this kayaker turns around in the spud, all their weight is at the back, And we talked about how the stern is very short. And so just with one stroke, you can actually 180 off a waterfall. Okay, hell yeah. And I'm sure we got another clip of that. We do, but I want to go in order just because we got hella and we're going to make our way. I'm going to get some water, got some ice. I only know this spud as going boating, but hell yeah. So this is going to be using the stern. So even in an inflatable boat, he's going to show on this eddy line that he can actually slice the stern. He's turning the spud into a half slice. And so I think you need that for R1. There is no reason you can't be, let's watch this one more time, sitting in the cockpit of an R1 and then have the boat rotate. And this is what I'm talking about. Like when you're in an R1, you're more back weighted anyway. And that allows you to be closer to the back and put your weight. And so I can talk while watching this. We'll watch this 3 times. But hell yeah. And in a raft, when you're, I think I need to point. But see how like it'd be difficult for this kayaker to get weight near the bow. And the same thing with R1. Like I can kneel on the front thwart, but that's just kneeling. Like I'm already sitting on the back thwart in R1, and I can scoot back. And so I have been working on techniques where I actually kneel up to the front and then put your hands, on the very front of the raft, grab the perimeter line. And that can really put a lot of weight on the bow. My boat needs hella more bow rocker because I want to instantly just shift my knees up and then hella rocker the boat. And then even hella rocker it more if I actually do, jump to put the hands on the perimeter line up at the bow. But in the back, hell yeah, you're already sitting back there. And I can do that in an R1 boat. Like in an R1 boat, even from the center cockpit position, you can slide all the way back here. So that's the first design consideration that should happen like overnight, is you should have some sort of raft material that covers that compartment that's fairly sealed up so you don't get entrapped in it, or just a foam block. I've been kind of figuring out what I want to do. I think a foam block for me would be perfect because then I could just modify it and be done with it, and it wouldn't add too much weight. Hell yeah. But then if you're back there, then I can just scoot all the way back. And so my feet just need to be in the front compartment. My feet don't need to be wedged into the front compartment to do the different moves that the Colorado boaters, and I'm gonna use that not as a stereotype, but there's 3 Colorado boaters that four that I document in this footage. And all of them do their moves from the back of the boat. So there's this huge need in R1 design to like, hey, let's capitalize on that. And this is just a kayaker. This was his best free will, he said, I think. And this is actually just rotating the bow off. So in a kayak, you're able to get the bow over. Like in a kayak, and call me out on these kayak terms and be like, hey, you need to educate, like me, like, hey, I need to educate myself more on specific kayak terms because I did that this month, you know what I mean? So I'm down to the roundhouse and blunts, so just spin moves. If you're just doing a spin on a wave, that's just a spin, but if you're actually throwing the nose, around and you're horizontal, that's a roundhouse. If you're actually doing it where the bow of the boat like stabs into the water and you're going vertical, then that's going to be a blunt if it's over 45 degrees. But those are useful physics terms, and hell yeah. And what a kayak can do is they can do that off the lip, but an R1 and even the spud is limited because even a spud might be limited actually just weighting the nose of the boat. It's too long. And the same thing with an R1 is it's very difficult. It'd be very difficult to get to the front of the boat, get all your weight. We just talked about that. And then because you would need to get a lot of weight near the front, get that, and then have that pivot, and then pivot the back around and stuff. Where we watched a spud, and we're going to see that video of the spud go back. So what they're going to do is basically go backwards. The spud is just going backwards off this. Then all their weight is in that, what I'm going to call the skateboard fakie position from an R1. Because if you're R1ing off a waterfall, you know, flip around and maybe get good at taking a couple backstrokes, but then hell yeah, then it's very simple just to flip your boat. So doing a fakie freewheel, and I think from the R1 that'll just be a good term. I'm going to use the term, you know, until the kayak and the R1 raft community, you know, come up with their own terms. All right, hell yeah. But this is just a freewheel in the forward position. Okay, sweet. And we'll get, you know, I kind of was jumped around a lot, but hell yeah, let's see what this is. So this is the spud. This is Hellhole on the Ocoee. And we also have R1 footage of the rafting surf, just an R1 surf of Hellhole. And so hell yeah. And so I'm going to stop this where I notice something. So hell yeah. We're going to watch footage of R1, and this wave surfs best when you're over on the right side. And look at this paddle. This paddle is prying. Like, this is angled this way. This part of the boat's going to go up into the wave, and then so you would need to pry the boat back around. Even though this kayaker can take strokes on either side, that is what, you know, what I would want people to focus on is the angle of that boat. You see that angle towards the left, and then that pry right there. So just every time that pry comes around, that's the stroke I want you to focus on. Hell yeah, and then a straight surfing, but in a second, and that's it. So that was a pretty good surf. But every time this surfer is angled to the left, just look for that pry right there, and then that pry right there. Hell yeah. Because we're going to see in an R1, you can only sit on one side, and we're going to show how this wave surfs from the right. I'm a lefty, and that's why this wave was very difficult for me to surf. And hell yeah, it's just kind of fascinating that I learned a lot over this winter that I think I can use for this next season. Okay, so hell yeah. So this is Isaiah Brown. Yeah, one of my favorites because he's a OC oneer. I think, but definitely a spud and an R1er. And he's a righty. And so what we're going to see is that the boat is very stable over on that right side with the rafter being on the right side. Right there is a very stable position. Now he's surfing this dynamic and then gets kicked off. But I'm going to talk about a stable position that I even saw one of the local R1ers that probably doesn't film a lot, but man, just really hooked in. He had just kind of an RMR thundercloud, and he was over on the right. And what we're gonna show is that this is gonna feed in. That's what I call like a, and this is just basic fundamentals. Like, it's crazy how like the R1 community, I'm just gonna say how myself 2 years ago didn't know any of this until, because I'm just not a kayaker, and a kayaker just everything just. Well, let's watch this, and I'm going to talk about intuition. Like, if I look at my footage from 10 years ago till now, it's all based on intuition. And is that what I was talking about, intuition? And I go back, you know, to right around the time of the Grand Canyon and prepping for that, and then the surfing that I did prior to the Grand Canyon and then after the Grand Canyon. All intuition. And some of those surfs seemed like my best surfs of my R1 career, even with the limitation that I'm just paddling on the right side. I don't switch sides at all. It's just left side dominant. That's that's how I paddle on the left side. And that's just all intuition. But then I think the second that I was starting to kind of analyze and try to actually do something, like very specific, I think you regress because like you're putting a lot of focus into just kind of one task and you're not allowing that intuition. The intuition in the boating world is like king, But then once you combine the intuition with the actual physics that's going on, then you're just like, oh, no, duh, like, what was I doing? And then so for this wave, like, of lefty, what's going to happen with me over on the left side is this is going to smile. We talked about how, like, a smiley face turn, you're going to be on the high side, and it's not going to allow you to straight surf. It's just going to instantly turn. And this is the big part of the wave. This part right here will flip you, especially if you're sideways. It'll dip your low side tube, and then you'll flip. And so it's very difficult to surf this wave from the left side, because what's going to happen? You're going to cross over here, and there is no stable position. This is all high as hell over here, and it's got that flippy wave, where if we even look at the entrance of this, this is a high eddy. You're actually, like, just watch, I guess, but you're entering and you're actually lowering. You're going to go low into that trough, but then that trough even funnels lower over to that far side. You do get a little bounce on this high eddy over here, kind of the eddy lines. All right, hell yeah. But yeah, so we're going to watch that. Oh, damn it. I do not want to lose this. It's like one of my favorite surfs. All right, hell yeah. And so when I was down on the Ocoee this fall, I got to see an R1er, and they just entered over on this right side. They're a right paddler. And what you're going to do is you're just going to enter over on the right side, and then you're just going to stay right here. And then the dynamics of it is you put your tube in with that little left angle. It's going to bump up, like it's going to bump up against this, this pile. Like it could turn sideways, but also you're still kind of over there. So this happens. You know, your boat kind of bumps up, and then that instantly turns you the other way. It kind of airplane turns you the other way. And I guess I shouldn't really say that. Let's just stick to the physics. Is that you're going to be prying over on that side. So and you could think of it. It's actually it was wickedly cool, because no one can tell whether you're surfing just the eddy line or the wave itself. But if you're over here, like right on this seam, you can just kind of stay on this seam with this left angle and prying. So if I pry the boat around, and I think for the remainder, sometimes I'll go first person, like I am this person. And so hell yeah. So if I pry the boat around early, then that will just hold me in that place. So this is kind of a late pry where you actually surf up the pile and then surf and then tractor beam all the way to the other side. But if you you can actually shorten that motion up, and then just stay locked in right here. So hell yeah. But that's one of the other fundamentals, is that holding that pry and then ferrying across is also probably the most effective way to ferry across, because you can remain straight. So if I am over here and I want to get to this side, this is a low side ferry. You're on the low side. And this is one of the cool things about R1, because it really feels like you're going to tip out. But as you're surfing over, you're holding that pry, and you can surf all the way over here. And once you're over here, then yeah, you're past the pile, and then you can turn back around. And then this one, it just happens to be that this corner is stable, because right here, this would be a very unstable position, because trying to paddle against the boat going this way, doing forward paddles is very difficult. And so, like, if you had to, you could jump to the other side and then pry this way to get the boat going around. But it's just the fact that everything is so low over onto that right side that kind of seals the deal. So even though when you come to this left and then you do a turn to the other side, it's stable over into that pocket. Okay, so hell yeah. So this is a right side surf. You could enter over on that right side, and then you're just going to pry your way straight. You're going to push the bow up against the pile and let it, and then pry it around, and then try to stay in that pocket. But hell yeah, this way you can do that pried ferry and go all the way back and forth. So this seems genius. I'm just like, holy Toledo's. Like, does this rafter know all that stuff? Or are they just using their intuition? You know, it's so interesting when it comes to intuition. Hell yeah. So R1 Rafting, I'm not on Instagram, and so I watch people's videos, but apologetically, I don't kind of do anything. You know what I mean? But hell yeah. So this, because most of the R1ers are on Instagram. That was brand new to me actually this year. All right, so this is a huge airplane turn. This is one of the sickest airplane turns I've seen. So props to that airplane turn. This is Gore. And so hell yeah. Yeah, if you're an R1er, go run Gore Rapid, because you can just get, I mean, it's like one of the sickest looking R1 lines that an R1er could do. And this is a righty. And this is because Ryan Huck also does this, and then I think Atticus Redding does this, but I think they're both lefties. And so this is from the perspective of a righty. And so there's dynamics here. So even if you're a lefty, hey, you might want to enter this on the right side. I mean, just because the dynamics are shown that you're going to, you know, like this opens up this portion of the boat. You have speed coming in. This actually opens up this planing angle, and then you're going to ride up that pillow. And so it's kind of fascinating. Some pillows, like Pillow Rock, you have to high side, else you're going to low side flip. But because this drops away, that hell yeah, you really get to slide up onto that. So yeah, such a sick move. All right, let's watch that one more time. But also, I'm making this video because some people don't, I mean, just like myself, I didn't know any of this existed until last year. I'm just a ride or die YouTube. And so, you know what I mean? Hell yeah. All right, so this is Ryan Huck's huge waterfall drop. I guess this is OB Joyful Creek, but this is the massive waterfall on that. It's for sure over 30 feet, looks like. Yeah, that's a hell of a vertical. And so, hell yeah. And, you know, they could write a book, and they actually do have some videos on there, you know, talking about this strap. I mean, the physics of this is that, damn it, I can't pause. I have to pause with a click. Sorry about that. But hell yeah, jumping back to the strap, making sure your feet are, yeah, it's holy Toledo. Yeah, it's gonna hurt that guy's collarbone just even watching this one. And then Kenny B, until I know his last name, damn it, I'm gonna mess up his last name, but broke his ankles running these waterfalls with Ryan, and that's in the documentary that they have. And so hell yeah. Yeah, that's sick. I mean, I think, you know, people have run waterfalls prior to this. Well, mainly R2, you know what I mean? So this definitely some of the pioneers when it comes to R1 waterfalls. So Kenny, I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm not going to say his last name. I don't want to mess that last name up. But hell yeah, Steep Creek Kenny. Hell yeah. And then this is really awesome because he posts a lot of surf, and so hell yeah. So this clip just kind of shows how the back of the boat super stable, you know what I mean? So I can't pause, sorry about that. So hell yeah, so the back of the boat super stable. The RMR, this could be either the RMR Cloud 9 or the Thunder Cloud. But yeah, that physics property needs to be exploited. And so my thoughts on this are that there's no reason why you can't access the stern while having your feet right here. You just make the boat just that much shorter. Like if you need to sit right here with your feet right there, then you just make the boat that much shorter. You get all the dynamics out of that. And what's happening is you're getting a hell of a lot more dynamics sitting on that. Sorry about that. You're getting huge amounts of dynamics sitting on the back because that is literally the only part of a raft that is heavily rockered. It's literally the last part of the bow and stern. Cool, that's going to loop. And And so from an R1 design, this really shows that, hell yeah, you want to maximize that. If you're sitting on that, that releases, I always talk about releasing 3/4 of the boat. Well, hell yeah, that definitely releases every part of the boat except the very last bit. And so there's no reason why you can't have progressive rocker starting even at, all right, hell yeah. Okay, and then, yeah, so him and Ryan just pioneering running OB Joyful Creek. Hell yeah. And a lot of the R1 footage that I do use is of people that are hella pushing the limits. Where I think, I'm just going to say it, the average person, they either not going to do this ever in their life. Yeah, end of statement. You know what I mean? Like, I've dealt with back pain for the last 3 years, so it just seems like waterfalls are out. But hell yeah, those 30-footers are very impressive. Okay, and so Kenny and Atticus Redding are kind of the two main pioneers of surfing the Salida wave. Sorry about that. And doing it from the back. And I have been, always a middle, cockpit boater when it comes to surfing. But I have been paying attention to this because it's these moves that are similar. Like your boat's, damn it, I have to use this for my, anyway. So your boat's vertical. And then so in kayak terminology, like the vertical, like a blunt is a vertical turn. So like, hell yeah. So this, like just pretend like this is a kayak and you're sitting facing the upstream. And if you were to do a blunt, what would you do? You actually, so which direction? Yeah. So a blunt is you're going to be pushing in on this outer tube over here. Like you're edging your outer tube and then shifting weight to this tube. Now, if your boat has a V-shaped rocker, maybe you could rotate back and forth and shift edges that quickly. But hell yeah, the main gist of it is then you're going to lay this in and have it spin. And look at that, the physics is spinning. So like literally between Atticus and Kenny, like you have the first blunts. And so, and it's just fascinating, and I don't know if, because all the R1 boaters that are doing it, like hella, typically aren't kayakers, and they're not kayakers for a reason, you know what I mean? They got into the raft guiding profession, and like I said, you only have so many minutes of the day in the year, and so you're going to be spending it in a raft. But hell yeah. And then to even me, the terminology of kayaks is lost. But I think once you understand the terminology of kayaks, then you're just like, hell yeah. So this is so starting from here, it would be a blunt. You're going to put this outer tube and you're going to, weight the outer tube, coming in. And then from even my footage, I talk about this is a low side turn. If I am just in the raft and I'm sitting over onto that far tube, and then I'm turning this way. Well, I'm actually going to put this tube's going to be lower in the water. And you can feel that when you are over on that because you're like, oh, I'm just going to fall out or I need to jump to the high side as this tube comes around. Now, this is doing that from the back of the boat, which happens instantaneously and your boat goes vertical. But still, those same physics, you instigated a low side turn over there and then you drop to this edge, which is exactly what a roundhouse is. And when you do that, your boat pirouettes because it's picking up that current. And at the same time, you would be taking a pry stroke off the stern of the boat to get it to further rotate. Well, you can't reach. You're not sitting up there anyway, so all this is happening right here. And so instead of a pry stroke, and because you're doing this from the fakie position, so this would be a fakie blunt. You know what I mean? And we talked about that. Sitting in the back of the boat is the only way to get your weight currently like so heavily loaded. And so hell yeah. And so you're just gonna take a forward paddle stroke, and so this forward paddle stroke finishes the blunt. And so this would be a fakie blunt. So from here, we're in a fakie position. Now, and I definitely talk about this in my footage, like if you're just R1 rafting, you're going backwards, well, hell yeah, you're going fakie. And just because if you're in a lake, all right, I need to slow down just a little bit, but if you're in a lake trying to paddle backwards, you actually need to get your knees up on the front thwart. Because if you get your knees up on the front thwart, that mimics the sitting position that you would be going if you were, going that direction. So if this boat is paddled backwards on a lake, you would actually want to get your knees up against one of the corners and then do your back paddle strokes and pry off the bow. But because you're sitting all the way back here in fakie, then when you take a back paddle stroke, you're basically kind of dragging the boat through the water. And so this is a fakie, it's just heavily, it's fakie. It's weighting this new, this is the stern. It's just weighting the new bow or weighting the stern. We're going backwards now. In this, like I use the terms like, hey, this is my new bow. And when you're surfing, you might want to think about that. Like, hey, I'm in this fakie position, but this obviously is a bow. I'm just heavily loading it. And then so it has these properties of heavily loading the bow of a kayak. And you basically instantly turn any sort of raft because all this cantilevers into a playboat. Now your boat literally is effectively 4 feet long, and you're able to do playboat maneuvers. And so this one, the fakie blunt actually goes. The physics shows. That's why I'm spending so much time on that, because this is, to me, this is one of the most landmark moves in R1 boating. And, I don't know if Kenny was the first. I think Atticus Redding. We finish with his R1 footage. I never, people stop posting, but I think his footage maybe goes back. But you never know, because this is 56 weeks. I don't know what that is. Oh no, it's just a year. Hell yeah! All right. So okay, and perfect. I'm glad I incorporated. So this is also sweet. We're gonna see the fakie position. This is this is just kind of how to catch a wave. But in this one, it shows the pry. Ah, damn it. But also just the insane stability from this back compartment. And so I think that you want to be, and in this boat, this is the high side max, and you'd be hard pressed to get your feet up and over that. This is a 10.5 foot boat. My boat's 10, and I can actually get my feet up and over, but not sitting on the back. And so, but no, that's fair. You can have your feet right here, and then sit right here, and then even lean back into here. So I think, like for all R1ers, this is a thing you should consider, especially if you're, you do a lot of your rafting from the front compartment, is to foam out at least the stern. And so we're going to watch this hopefully one more time. But yeah, so foam out the stern, so when you are sitting in this R1 compartment, then you can just scoot your butt back, and you can actually be closer to this far corner. Like, hey, and even from here, it's not all the way on the back, still and then, what the hell? And so the space bar. But anyway, so when you're entering a wave, the bow's going to kind of want to get kicked out, and then so prying this turnaround. Yeah, my bad. I think I just need to get better at... yeah, this is my space bar. All right, we're going to move on. This is something that I need to actually practice. So this is when driving into a hole, and just go sideways. So what we're going to see is that Kenny's going to go into this hole, turn sideways, and let's just say that's the move, and then high side out of it. And then so, I mean, sometimes me, I just fall out. But this, like, that is something that I actually need to work on. I never brace my feet in a whole lot just because I'm moving around the boat so much. And so, but that is something that I need to work on, is doing a lot more braced in maneuvers and use this downstream lean. just aggressive high side. Because in an R1 boat, like, your weight's the most. Like, let's say the boat is actually only 60 pounds, and obviously humans weigh more than 60 pounds, so, like, literally the center of mass is right here. And so that comes in huge. All right, hell yeah. And so, damn, is this the one? This is literally, this one is, okay, so I'm in, this is one of the things when it comes to R1 boating is, yes, this is one serious run, because this is, what you'd consider kind of class 5. This is, how do I put this? Oh, and you gotta watch it all the way. But yeah, just a huge hole. This is a must-survive hole. So, like, this is the closest call I've seen in R1 footage to be like, holy shit. And I guess, I don't know, in reality, yeah, you'd body slide down that. Hopefully you don't break anything. Oof, yeah, you're gonna break stuff. Just physics. But it is a slide. But yeah, so this, oh, yeah, and then the jump to the low side. So this is, hopefully this is, I mean, yeah, this is some raw stuff, man. What I appreciate about this clip is that's a damn decent hole above something that you want to run. Like, you have this cool waterfall, that's one thing, backed by a very sticky hole to an R1 raft. And R1 rafts and holes usually end up in flips, falling out. And even this one does throw bend to the low side. You know what I mean? And then who the hell knows where this is why I make videos. Just like, do you have the spatial, if you are on this side paddling into a hole, chances are you already took a strong stroke, and so your stern is going to get washed out that way. Guess what? It's going to be the next highest thing. So just having those fundamentals, but who knows? But yeah, hell yeah, that's going to be the next highest thing. And that might toaster, but actually, no, that just kind of gets, like, that really sticks. And then, getting thrown to the low side. I mean, yeah, these holes pop you so hard. Like, that's such a crazy save. And then just maintaining. And actually, like, that last little clip of just being in the bottom of the boat, all R1ers should practice that. Just get into a hole that's nasty, but is flippable. Like, the Golly has a lot of those. A Hungry Mother's perfect one. And then you just sit in the middle of the boat, because usually the middle of the boat is fairly stable. The middle of the boat can be the most stable position because you're weighting the floor. And what flips an R1 boat is the width and then the rounded shapes of the tubes. Hell yeah. Alright, so booyah. Alright, so, and then this is Ben Lloyd, from that back surfing one of the hugest standing waves. So this is Ponderosa. This is on the Arkansas. Don't quote me on that. There's a few rivers down in Colorado that, I'll probably mess up. But, the Animas? It could be the Animas and the Arkansas, seem like very similar drainages. I have no idea. But yeah, hell yeah. So you get to see the stability of that. Yeah, very fascinating. And so from an R1 design, why not have that same advantage having your feet just in the middle compartment? You know what I mean? That's what I'm looking for, because then you can do moves on these huge waves. And this really shows, this goes back to that spud. You need your stern to be loose in there. And even that last little clip of the stern actually, being able to turn the stern one way or another, that is like what is going to be functional. You know, adjective, adjective. But anyway, that's what an R1 boat needs. It needs to have a sliced stern. Like, especially on a big wave, you need to get, first, you need to get into the straight surf. And this shows that one of the best ways to do that is to get all of your weight on the stern. And it's where it's the most rockered. All your boat's free, and it's where it's the most turned. And then so I think the next step is be in a side surf. So let's say like I'm in a side surf on a big wave. How do I get to the stern? Well, you need to slice your stern through the wave itself. And so I think that is one of the places where an R1 boat, you still maybe want the 10-foot dynamics, you know, or 9.5 foot. Maybe you still want about the same length, because length is very useful in an R1. But just the volume. Just literally cut the volume down to nothing. So just bring the rocker, let's say this was the stern, just bring the rocker hella up to that point. So now you have hella more rocker, and bring the rocker in earlier. So if you actually just sit, that's what I want. I want to sit just behind the front thwart and then engage like this. And you know if you've engaged it, if you can see your boat out of the water. So I definitely want to have the neutral position, you know, on this thwart, sure, be the same. But the second you just shift one body width back, hell yeah, your boat lifted. And then progressive rocker. So you get to there, it's going to be more. And for sure, just having your feet in that front compartment, you should be able to get you should be able to just get to the back of the boat. I think really boats need to be 8.5 feet. You know what I mean? But definitely, and maybe, you know, what I have found is you potentially don't need to cut any more down on the bow. Hell no. Because especially if you're running waterfalls, you really want to have that bow heavily rockered. And if you're trying to bridge gaps with holes. But definitely the stern could be just a foot shorter, I think. You know, hell yeah. And then so you could reach the same position from the feet being right there. And I'm not going to get any better at that. All right, we'll watch this, and then we're going to move on. Hell yeah, and this is one of the skills. I don't even have the skill of getting into the back of my boat and expecting the best. So this is super cool, you know, especially from these Colorado boaters kind of going a different direction with an R1 skill to be like, you should do this, you know what I mean? And it shows, because that's a hella stable surf in such a big environment. Okay, this is one of the blunts. So this would be a roundhouse or a blunt. It's a blunt because the boat goes more than 45. So right off the bat, what a blunt is, and I won't be able to pause it actually. Oh, so here. So a blunt is where you're going to actually drive in a turn. We talked about how you're going to load up this outside corner. And if you did have V-shaped rocker, you can shift your weight, you know, on a... because if you did have a very pronounced V-shaped rocker under the boat, now you have like a teeter-totter effect where if I'm over here, I'm on this edge, like I'm on this half of the boat, and then the second I cross a line, it's a dynamic shift to be over here. And then so you could use that to actually drive these turns, so drive a blunt. And a lot of these R1 raft spins don't require a paddle. Literally, what I've realized is that you do have this fundamental of driving a low side tube in. Like if this is your low side tube, because we're going to come all the way around and spin all the way under, and then this tube is going to be on the low side. So you're going to see that in a second. All right, fifth stutter, but we're doing good. A roundhouse is where you're going to weight this tube and edge. You know, you're edging your low side tube, bringing that around, and then driving your bow in and then switching to this tube. And don't quote me on any of this. I could have said that total opposite, but hell yeah. And then so you're going to finish with edging over here and then prying off the stern. But because we're doing this from the fakie position, cool, we get to do a forward paddle stroke. And then this forward paddle stroke brings the boat around. And the magic is in the next few clips, in the next few videos that we're going to be watching. But we're going to watch this for sure one more time. So this, I'm going to say, is the first blunt. Hell yeah. And it's good to, have credit where credit's due. No, Atticus Redding probably has the first blunt. But this is one of the best. This is like super crispy, and it fits into the category of kayak blunt. And that's where I don't even think people actually kind of pay attention to these actual terminology, just because, like, hey, it is from a fakie position. We talked about that, but there's no difference in R1 whether it doesn't matter where you're looking. It's just that we talked about how if you're in this front compartment, it's almost nearly impossible to get your weight forward enough to get this weight engaged. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for higher rocker. I still think the front, and sorry, need to have a drier mouth. It sounds better. I'm aware of that on the footage too. But anyway, when I've been at the play waves, because I have deflated a portion of my boat, if you don't have any front end, it's awful. Like, you don't get any grip along the wave, you don't get any planing motion, and so I think you do want a bow that's about the same length. The stern can get reduced, but what I want in the bow is heavy rocker that starts. The second I shift my shin to the front of the boat, I want the boat to tip. I want some sort of release from the back. And so that's what you can have from a progressive, and that's all we have in R1. We can shift our shin to the front. That's about as good as it gets in a dynamic environment. I have started putting my whole knee, whole shin up and over the front thwart, and then putting my hands. But I think you want to start that progressive rocker the second your shins hit this. And hell yeah. Hell yeah, and I think this month has been pivotal, because a lot of my videos are just like kind of loose, and you're just like, I think that's kind of half right. But we're slowly building the terminology. And so hell yeah. And especially from like the Dane Jackson family, like Eric Jackson making all those instructional videos, and then even, I mean, there's an aspect of kayaking in this whole sport that it has to be cool, and it's just like, even to teach something basic can be considered uncool, and it takes risk to even do that. All right, hell yeah. So this, we talked about Kenny high siding, so this is Ben Lloyd. And I think that is an effect. That's something that I don't do. And then this is just like, this is what I want to make videos on, because you have holes where you're just like, what the hell are the dynamics in a hole? And so I have started to talk about how the edges of a hole want to pop tart your boat. So if you were just sideways in a hole doing side surf, I would call that toastering. Like, your boat's kind of just pop, like, wide, and just a wide piece of toast popping out. But what's going to happen is, like, and it's not necessarily a hit that's going to throw you out. Because that hit, sorry about the stuttering, man. But that hit on the bow, locked the boat in place. That didn't do what I was going to say it did. But in a second here, I think it's this portion of the boat, right here. This portion of the boat, it'd be almost impossible to intuit this. But this is now free to slide out, like this corner. Just elevation on the corners is lower. You have incoming water that's faster, and you have lower elevation. And so let's, and it doesn't happen on that. Damn it. When does it happen? But that popped out a little bit. But in this one, we get a huge, what I'm going to call Pop-Tart. Maybe I shouldn't call it Pop-Tart, but hell yeah, there it is. And so that drove in and then popped out the side, because it doesn't have any hole to hit. And this is huge, because this becomes such a huge high side, and wherever your body is, now you're on the low side. Literally, you're just thrown to the low side, and now it's hard to figure out where the new high side is going to be. It's over here. And so, like, let's see. But hell yes, that was a pretty good hang on. But even on that one, hell yeah. And then probably that second hit, probably the same. But let's, so I think just watching this video and just paying attention to seeing if your ends are going to pop. You know what I mean? Is that going to pop that end? Is that going to pop that and not really. But now coming around and just knowing that I'm going to move from one side, now I'm going to slide all the way over. That's going to pop, and that pop-tarted out. And then that pop-tarted out that side. And, all right, hell yeah. And we can't use the word. I got to stop before I'm heading. Okay, hell yeah. And then so, yeah, this is just monster. And so this is the same, and we have to go back. Sorry about that. We're going to look at this one more time, because now we're going to compare 3 different clips. We're going to compare the blunt. So you do have a physics going on there, and I'm going to show is that this actually really works well is if it does go vertical. Like when you lay this tube in, if this boat goes vertical instead of sideways, you're not going to fall out. And so that's the physics that, it's very loose physics, but it needs to be pointed out because this could be one of the most, like this could be the kick flip for an R1 boat. Hell yeah. Like our first, and I'm actually really want to do this, but hell yes. If the boat goes vertical, it actually makes this more stable because now the boat drops in and pirouettes. And then you actually have something. And then so keep that in mind because this is insane. It doesn't happen right away, but you're going to see the same physics, and it's not even that one. Like that's crazy, but it's this next one. This next one is literally a full barrel roll. And the boat barrel rolls, but that R1er could have stayed in. And so, and then this is one of the, yeah, okay, I did not know this. So Narnivores is, you know, Tim, sorry about that, damn. Tim Waterhouse. Yeah. Yeah, and this is an R1er that I have just recently found. Probably this last week, I can honestly say. And I'd be like, holy shit. And so a lot of this is go for it and skill at the same time. It's still using that heavily intuition. And so it's just that last little piece that I'm just like, oh, that last little piece made the boat barrel roll, and the R1 boater could have stayed in. So that's where I'm going to pause it. I'm going to use these clicks. And we're going to show how that's just a blunt. Well, I don't know what you call it after it's a full vertical. I don't know my kayak terms. But, that's super quick. But, hell yeah. It turns around, the boat goes vertical, but because of those 2 things that we just showed in that last clip, it's going to barrel roll. And so the boat does barrel roll, and it lands. And so let's see if I can stop that at the location that it had. Even this first one is just worth, this first hit. That's crazy. Because that's like a, actually, I want to actually explore this first hit. Because, like, this first hit is something that I probably do with the wave, just in a smaller scale. So it's a vertical pop, but then you are on the low side. Holy hell. And then the bow actually spits out kind of the wrong direction. And then you are low-sided. But this is wild. I don't keep my feet wedged in. A lot of these boaters do. And then that allowed him just enough time to land on that. Okay, so that first sequence was worth. So let's see if we can. So I think this is going to. See, it's so fast because the bow turns and then it's a fakie. So from this point on, it's a fakie roundhouse. So this would be driving this tube in. You don't even need to be on that other side, but anyway, just hanging onto this low side tube. Okay, so in this one, you would have to hang on to that you'd have to be on that low side tube. So this is the last time. I haven't analyzed this, but it was very similar to be like, hell yeah, that's a... So this is going to hit and do a half spin, but it's going to go... Yeah, so that Pop-Tarts, right? And then this is going to drive the back of the boat in. So the turn is happening kind of right here at the 90. And then you're doing the hella pirouette. But that does flip the boat all the way around, which is remarkably impressive. Like, that is the worthwhile thing. And so I'm going to show you just one clip of mine that's the same physics. So come in here, low siding tube, and the boat rights itself. You know, so I think this is one of those things that can be exploited. And so this portion of the boat's going to Pop-Tart. We kind of talked about that. It's going to throw this. So yeah, so you're doing a Pop-Tart out the side, throwing the stern in, and then we're back to, you know, this position where now you're throwing the stern in. You're low side turning this. And this is where from the Tim Waterhouse, if I'm getting that right, was just over here on the low side. And then so when this low side tube comes around, see how this low side tube is still lower? You would not be able to get on that high side tube, but you could just hang on to this. So you could even do this as a recovery move if it got hella dynamic, just knowing that your boat is going to, you know, you're going to fall out this side, but at least your boat is going to start surfing again. And so I think this is, I don't know, I'm just, damn it, I'm kind of arrogant, but I'm kind of proud of myself for actually seeing this, just because it's such a stable move. Like, I didn't do, this is just old school clips where I'm, like I said, I'm just going off of intuition. I'm just high-siding for the best, and then just holding on for dear life, and then you just stumble across something that actually the physics works quite nice, and then you're just sweet. I can't wait to see that on film. And then 10 years later, you're just like, oh, yeah, you can exploit that. You know what I mean? And hell yeah, you can see it's just like, yeah, this is going to hit. It's going to toaster out the side. We talked about that. So this part of the bow toasters, if this toasters, the stern gets whipped, you know, like, you know, Newton's law of equal and opposite reactions. And I'm over here on this tube, so I'm going to get low-sided. And I'm not even doing any paddle strokes. You know what I mean? But I'm going to get this low side move is going to low side turn. And I'm not going to flip just because the boat is loading up. But you do have that verticality, which we talked about was good. We said if this is going to load up, that you want the boat to go vertical. Because when it does go vertical, then the self, you know. And so I think this move for sure needs to be explored a whole lot more. So you have that, and it's all from this move, which would be the fakie blunt. Hell yeah, and getting the bow to go up over the top of you. And then we have this move, which is the most aggressive surf I have ever... This is the Columbus surf, but... I mean, he could have smacked his head on the end. I don't know. You could just, I mean, but I want to do this. I mean, it's just high risk, you know, risk reward. But hell yeah, this is one of those surfs that, in my mind, this is the most legendary surf I've ever seen in the R1 world. Especially because it exploits a lot of physics that are just like, oh hell yeah, like that one right there. Like if you could land that. Like, I don't know. Like, you know. It's not like the kickflip where just, like, loads of R1ers can be like, oh, I'm going to do that. But, I mean, it's just very fascinating. Everything in R1's a little bit harder. But to exploit that and land that would be insane. All right, we got to move on. Are those still bogging down my computer as I go? Okay, hell yeah. So this is kind of a quick R1 video of, like... I think there's huge advantages of having R1 paddle cats, but here's one of the negatives. You put your nose in, you're going to go vertical. hey, that could be a positive because, you know, maybe you do want to go vertical. And so I'm just showing that this is one of the drawbacks in surf waves of doing vertical flips. But if you want to go vertical on small waves, maybe you can actually use that to your advantage. Okay, hell yeah. So this is Wenatchee. This is Rodeo Hole. Back of the bow surf. I didn't really pick up any clips here, but we can watch that. So this is just, sure, this is stable. We've talked about that, but really I wanted to talk about, hopefully these people do it. I coined it the dog bone style. That's not a very good term, but hell yeah. If you're, I don't know what else to call it, but it's like a dog bone, just like spinning. When both people are front and back. Here you go. Yeah, this is the one I wanted to show you. And so when they're both front and back, like Newton's law, one gets slid, and then you get those low-sided turns. Like you're building up that, look at these, that's a low-sided turn. But if one goes out, the other comes in, you know. And this really, actually, I use the word static spin. Like when you're just trying to straight surf, and then your boat kind of goes one way or another, that's actually the primo time to do a spin. Like when you're trying to hold a straight surf, and then, oh, shoot, it goes on you. You typically can always do a static spin. So that's what I'm labeling a static spin, is when you're straight surfing and you can't hold it no more, it's going to do a spin. And so this really shows that I'm going to take a break, and, you know, because I can probably remember this clip. Well, let's go to a clip where it repeats. Hell yeah. Yeah, this is another good surf. Yeah, just a good classic surf. So I'm going to take a break here. I'm going to get some more water. This is my first break. Even if I don't edit this, just, you know, go to the next clip. I should be back in 3 minutes. Alright, hell yeah, I just needed some ice water. Alright, so this is the Waterhouse Glass Instagram. For the love of God, I hope it's... I'm not even going to use the first name because I'm not 100%. I apologize about that. I really like this clip because it's, I don't know, just off-angle, tricky lines that actually have a little bit of water, you know. I'm always looking for hits where it's just like, hey, these are punchy hits. This is the RMR. Let's say it's the Thundercloud. I have no idea if it's the Cloud9 or Thundercloud. But this is a diamond-shaped boat. And your boat gets easily thrown one way or another. And so I just thought, like right there, it instantly gets thrown. But through this top section, I just thought there was good boat awareness. And who the hell knows? But just like that was really good. Paying attention to surfing your boat, you know, riding the features, and not have things just like knife in, and being aware of that. All right, hell yeah. So yeah, the fact that I just came across this R1er this last week, because this is such a, and just a thrill for surf and some talent. So this is a sticky little hole. This is, oh, bummer. I wanted that one to be longer, but this is the, he was saying this is like the whirlybird hole on the Akoi. I don't know if it's the middle or the lower Akoi. But, shoot, it's not that clip that surfs for days. But hell yeah, this one probably. But yeah, same little hole. And it just surfs for days. Hell yeah, just super cool. But yeah, one of his clips is just like surf after surf on that thing. Doing this clip because it's a drop surf. Is that what you call them? Like when you just like drop in? Hell yeah. And just really clean. So that's why I was just showing that one. It's just like, hell yeah. That one's worth watching one more. It's not this one, but it's the next one. So this next drop, yeah, and just to drop in on that, that's really good. Oh yeah, someone said no crunching ice. Sorry about that. All right, hell yeah. Okay, so Ryan Huck. Because this is a river that, you know, was on my bucket list. And I messed up a line the same year. I went 2024. And so Ryan Huck's just going to drop this. Oh, I apologize. We're going to get to the Pillow Rock. But this is the Meltdown. Yeah, he has no fear when it comes to melting down. He does like 3 laps on this. He'll walk his boat back up. But I'm impressed because a lot of these R1 lines, like, I just will mess up. Like, when I went in there, I, you know, overshot it and just kind of rode up here. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to get down through there? So watch, like, that's what I look at these, you know, people that are just going for it, is what you're probably safer because you're taking more dialed lines. You know what I mean? You're going for the big water instead of like the eddy above a, you know, janky drop. And so, yeah, I was actually on postage due watching him run his lines and just really crisp in here. And because, does that make sense? Like if you have a little more fearlessness, then like you're just dropping into this meltdown, the meat of it, which is amazing. Now, here's the dildo, which is also intimidating because that can stick your boat and that would suck. But I guess you're not dropping in this direction. You're getting left to, you know, right to left momentum. But just to drop into this meltdown is, that move right there is hella intimidating because your boat definitely melts down. And it seems like in an R1 that you actually want to get, you know, a lot of, you want to catch a little pillow. There's not much pillow there to begin with. And so, yeah, it's definitely a meltdown move. All right, so that was hella sweet. I didn't see this one, but the 2005 footage. But this is the one. I tried to come across here on pillow and hit inertia. And you can watch that. I don't show footage. But this was just like, hey, I knew there was water going over this rock, but so here's my question to R1ers. Does this line not exist to you? You know what I mean? In your mind, just because like there's a little bit of what do you call it? Sleeper. But you know what I mean? No big deal. And then you're just set up down that left side. And so hell yeah. So that was you know, just in my learning process of being like, oh, like I see this R1er drop that is just like, oh, I can definitely do that. You know what I mean? There's enough water and it's fall flow. So it's the same. There's going to be the same amount of water going over this. And the GoPro doesn't do it justice. This still feels like a hole. It still feels like you're boofing into a place where you don't want to be. It's a little sticky, like that little, you know, and so definitely, you know, treat this like a boof. And this Sotar Excalibur definitely has that boofing quality. I'm trying not to, you know, I'll try not to say, I want to say as much physics related You know what I mean? I don't want to say like go drink more Ovaltine, but hell yeah. This has a short floor, and so I've only gotten to see one. Like I've only got to see Ryan's in person when he like loaded it up onto postage due, but it has the two aspects that I like. I'll just get to this real fast. Is the floor is short, and so these two outer tubes hit more, and so you get more stability. 2 points of contact. Let's say you're boofing and you actually do land this. What's going to happen? The floor's not going to hit first. That's what happens on my boat. The floor hits, and it totally sucks. Where you want these 2 points of contact to get that nice stable feel. And so my boat, by no means, is very good in a lot of stability ways. It can be actually the most awful. And so, but hell yeah. And that's for a separate conversation we can have later, especially when it comes to the RMR Thundercloud. I appreciate that boat because I don't think it's the most stable. And so I've always appreciated like Kenny and Ben, and then even, is it Tim Waterhouse, like running the RMR Thundercloud. And what I do like about the Thundercloud is it could be a little surfier, but this boat, I think, has that just like if you look at Ryan's footage compared to Kenny's footage of doing the same waterfalls, this one tracks straighter. And so that's where the physics is like, do you want a... And is there a better term for the word railed underneath? Because in skiing, railed isn't a good thing. It means you need to get your edges ground and everything's going to concave. Even in the racing world, I don't think you want railed. You want flat. But in the rafting world, this shows that you'd potentially... even if I had my design of like a playboat, I still want these two portions up front to be railed. I want them to be hella rockered, but I don't want the floor to get in the way. Does that make sense? I want 2 points of stable contact. I want potentially a lot of, rocker side to side where I'm sitting, but definitely bow and stern. When those contact something, I want those two locations to be railed. Where... for sure, when it comes to the physics of like dropping a waterfall or something, maybe you do want a more railed boat, depending. And I think those are the two directions R1 can go, and you should be able to make that modification yourself. And I think you can, especially with this Sotar's laced-in floor. You could raise it or lower it or change the location, and so there is that. All right, we got to move on. I really appreciate this footage because this is a river that I'll probably go back to every year. This is, what is this? This is Iron Ring. And this is a cool one. I'm putting this in because this is a right to left Iron Ring run. We're really going for that boof right there. And this looks clean. So this is Woodstock Hole. You do not want to get captured by this and get body swum because there is just a nasty rock. This whole thing is just formed by a huge Woodstock rock. And it's got a flume to this side underneath it. It's just nasty. But this is a perfect R1 launch. And even where Ryan launches right here, like in R1 world, this is air. You know what I mean? And this is a shout out to, if people want first... and I think Ryan could do it, or Kenny in their Sotars because of that, like that length, or just that water line and speed, and then they're light, they're like 55 pounds, is they could be able to get the first full air, straight air. And so, if they're watching, if people wanted to, and I think the R1 world needs some competition. I want to keep it friendly. Like you can easily use competition in like a negative way, or sometimes a positive negative way. Like when I actually see people do things, like if I get jealous, sometimes that gets my butt out there. Be like, hell yeah, well, it's time to go do that. And my biggest thing is like, I boat by myself, so it's just like I kind of try to gauge as much as possible, like what risks I want to take in life and what rewards I want to seek. But this is just one of those. Is just like I really like when I see clean boating where it's just like, especially R1, where it's just like whether you chose to do it or not, it's just like, oh hell yeah. Because this is super sticky right here. Like you don't want to be way far over here to the right anyway, but you do want to be right enough so you know you're going to clear woodstock. But just this right to left is hella sweet. And I would like to do this move because, look, you cleared woodstock hole, and now you got such a sweet boov. And if you really laid into that and edged, and that's where I think, that's where I think even this Sotar, you know, or whatever, just from an R1, let's watch this a few more times, with a V-shaped hole, a lot is, all right, drag. I don't know if that helps, but I just like, just want to get to it and just start saying words. But R1's got huge amounts of drag. Like the whole boat is drag. It should be planing surface. Like we should have the fastest boats out there because look at all this planing surface. Well, it's just planing drag. And so to have a V-shaped hole where you can actually lean, and we're just where you're normally sitting. If this other portion is out of the water, because even right there, if that portion was out of the water, you wouldn't have hit this hit. Like right there, every little hit like this that can, like you wouldn't have taken that hit because you would be more like a kayak. I think you could get more instability with a V-shaped hole for sure because it's the opposite of a railed boat. But then it frees up your water line. And so if you were to do straight airs, or like I don't know if we could ever do a kick flip, but at least launches. Like I think in the R1 world, if you could get your entire boat out of the water, that would be, I want to see who's going to do that first. Hell yeah. All right, I was filmed doing this. The filmer's down here. This is Hospital Hole. This is the second run. You can maybe see a little bump out of the water. The filmer is just like, dude, it felt like you got air, and he actually got some. It's a mystery. He wanted to make a documentary, and so hopefully we make it in the comedy world, comedy and rafting. So we're Dex on Kiltony. Hell yeah, comedy is painful. It's awful, but it's super fun. I mean, it'd be, I don't know. Yeah, if I ever flip the switch to be like, hell yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to try to make money at it. But every road trip, I'm going to go back to Austin. I think I can get on Kiltony again. But hell yeah. What were we talking about? Difficult stuff? Catching air? Oh, he's making a movie. You know, and if I do make it in life, hell yeah. That would be the ending. You know, better than... I was going to say something cryptic, but hell yeah. That'd be a sweet ending. Make it doing comedy. And do some rivers along the way. Booyah. But hell yeah, I think there was a little bit of air on this. And I'm just saying, hell yeah. You know what I mean? Not much. Can't really tell. But just... And I don't know if a hole is your best place to boof to actually get air. I think it is, though. Because if you do get a little bit of air, it'll look really cool because you have this huge vacancy. And, hell yeah. Oh, holes like these, though, they can jar you so hard. You could kind of hurt shoulders and just, you can kind of crack your head a little bit. You got to... I don't know, man. All right, hell yeah, moving on. Okay, so... Oh, yeah. So, hell yeah. So, again, like, this is what kayakers are doing. This is Dane Jackson, Ryan following Dane Jackson down. Just, I just thought this was very fitting. Because it's just like, you know what I mean? This would be like, Ryan, you should do this. You should catch a straight air. You have the ability to. And I think you'd want to be the first to photograph yourself. Because, yeah, Ryan's got all these footages of going over waterfalls where 3/4 of his boat's just sticking out in space. But I think it's time that an R1, and this is a tiny wave, and look at Dane Jackson doing his little kickflip. It would require a big wave. And I don't know if, an R1 raft doing a kickflip seems impossible. But you know what I mean? The first thing is straight airs, right? But yeah, if you get straight airs, then that opens the door of what you could do. especially since, look at this, a lot of the maneuvers are from the stern anyway. So it's an optical illusion that you're actually flipping your entire boat around. So let's take a look at this. So if you minus everything else, you know, like minus the nose of the boat, and you just look at the stern is, well, that's actually slicing over the head. But the stern of the kayak, so the weight of the kayaker, the stern being lightweight and slicey, goes from one place to another very quick and snappy like, and it's just rotational motion where, and I'm just saying words, but I mean, does that make sense? It's not like the whole boat is doing this huge loop. A lot of these moves can come from quicker rotations, and especially that's the place R1 can exploit, is near the stern, because our weight's back there, and we could even, I don't know, it'd be like dropping a waterfall where you actually catch straight air and then you actually grab onto the stern and then try to roll the boat. That you know, far-fetched, and then you would actually have maybe you know, something that helped your stern roll easier. But anyway, that's but anyway, hell, you're just saying words. Okay, so after this drop in, we're gonna see that stern get some water. But yeah, this is already a fun thing in R1ing, even with the design of these boats. So this is one thing that I think just needs to be capitalized on. I know that the R1ers are wanting to sit back in this compartment, but I would say that you actually want your feet into the middle compartment, and you want to get the same effect with your feet right there. And then just lean back, and it gives you more options. I don't know why it does. But it gives your, oh yeah, that's the reason. It gives you want to be sitting maybe like right here, and then your stern, you want to be hella low volume. And so I think that you want your stern just like a half slice. Like when you're in a kayak, you don't sit on your stern to do the moves. Like this R1, like we're having to sit on the stern mainly just because that's the most rocker. Like R1 boats don't have rocker. I'm just going to say that as a stereotype until you get to the actual bow and stern. And so this is the one location that you can actually pick your boat up out of the water. And I think you can remedy that by just having progressive rocker that starts when you sit right here. Oh, this ice water is not helping. And then so you have a seated position right here, and then low volume stern, so you can initiate these stern squirts, and you can still sit in the same location. You should be able to do the same maneuver with your feet. Hell yeah. With your feet right here and right there, just up and over these tubes to do the same maneuver. I mean, that physics isn't hard. It's just, do you want that? And is there an advantage to that? Yes. The advantage to that is now, during a normal run, you can do a stern maneuvers and then go to the bow and do bow maneuvers. Or, you know, and then if you're in, then the entire, because like Ben's just like, oh no, this is just for fun. You just get back here and play. And it's just like, I see it more full, like, oh, and this is a sweet, but look at this one more time. I see this as one of the more useful things in the R1 when it comes to slalom kayaking, is that you use your stern to initiate, you get perfect rotation, so you can rotate your boat and then paddle around a gate. And so in R1, because this is something that's stable, needs to be capitalized on. Let's move on. All right, so this is one of those things. This is inertia hole in a booth. So I would categorize, there's two different types of booths. And this is the one that's, oh, this was wild. Was it this clip right here? No, there was one where he almost, from that stern position, like again, like weighting the stern, like literally rides his boat all the way up on. I think it's the 2006 footage. But literally, like, he's able to high side up and splat and climb up himself. Is super wild. Alright, so, but this is the inertia hit, and then there's footage from shore. But anyway, this is a substantial hit, and you definitely want to clear this. So this brings up the, this reminds me of like Dane Jackson and the Jackson families. I just follow them, but, when it comes to kayak design, because like you want to, after you boof a hole, for sure you want to be able to get some forward momentum. And hell yeah. And so this one works good. So holes like these where you have a drop into a hole and then you're able to, but this is still intimidating. You get stuck in there, you're going to be stuck. I mean, you got a lot of people to help you out, but, and then there's, definitely this hole is of a different category. This is a safe environment for me on this hole, but this is where, like, if you follow, like the Payette run, you get a lot of, like, Dane Jackson will just boof these holes all day, and, it's such a big vacancy in a steep hole from the launch to the hit. And see, like, even right here, I don't get a lot of juice into this, and so I'm just going for, I think from an R1 design to really accentuate, I'm just saying adjectives, but be able to glide through there. Like, hell yeah. I forget the terms. Jackson Nirvana is able to skip. That's what they say. Like, kind of skip through these holes. Like, the second it hits the hole, it's going to skip through. I don't know if I want to bring this one up. This one I'm going to bring up. So, hell yeah. So, we actually do a rotation here. And check this out. Because we actually have, just think of this as weight. And I talked about that dog bone style of surfing. I'm loading up the bow. Hey, the stern's going to throw itself in. And because I have weight sticking out there, like, it literally helps catch this. And so that's what I was kind of noticing from this. And I would consider this spin, let's say I'm just in a straight surf and I'm trying to hold it, and then, it's going to spin me. So this is what I would label a static spin in R1 surfing. You're straight surfing, and typically when you're straight surfing, it's going to bump you up against the most dynamic places, either the shoulder or the pile. Now, that last statement I just kind of made up. But when that happens, the physics of it, the second your boat starts to, like, lose that straight surf, it wants to static spin. It just, like, actually wants to spin and stick. And I don't even have to hardly do anything to usually stick that. Now, you do have to be early. You can't be like, I want to start, still keep my straight surf right here and then start to do something. You'll just get pieced out every time. So in R1ing, there is, you need to, like, hey, give up on something and then be quick about it. And so if and especially when it comes to this, the static spin, it's going to, kick you one way or another. So just get a little bit quicker at that and be like, hell yeah. So, like, right now, pry. And it's a combination of, like, prying and jump to the low side. So let's see if I don't even jump to the low side on that one. And this video is just showing that we have a huge chunk of weight back there, that little thwart. And hell yeah. Now, that thwart was used for reflipping. We probably had one more spin. That thwart was used for reflipping, but that's a horrible location. I would not recommend any, but no one's going to put inflatables sticking out of their raft. They look funky. But that location turned out to be not the best. All right, so that's that. The best location for this thwart, and that actually makes the most sense and looks not weird, is lengthwise. So just right off the back and then lengthwise. And then so that's future of R1 design, is that you want this stern to be hella rockered. Well, either the bow or the stern. I think you would want that in the bow. Because it just has to be in one location, because your boat's kind of like a tripod and it helps reflipping. So hell yeah. All right. So this is the rodeo. You know what? We already washed that one, but hell yeah. But yeah, we already washed that one. Yeah, we're moving on. Unless I had something real quick, I don't think this was it. Yeah, this was something. And then so this was the first time that I was actually able to do, so like right here, I'm going to spin and then get my paddle in the water. And so that was the initial spin. And then it's the second spin. I know, like, hey, I need to high side here. It's going to clip like right here. And guess what? I already know that's going to take place, and I'm getting my paddle in the water. So this was one of those things. It was like the first actually doing a move and getting my paddle back in the water. And that's where I was just happy that a lot of these spins, like that spin required the paddle, but this, like the spin right there, that didn't require the paddle. It required the paddle to actually stick it. But a lot of the spins just go, one of the fundamentals is like, okay, let's say this is the new bow. The new bow is going to strike right here, and I want to be at the diagonal. And so that just makes sense. If I'm on this low side tube, it's going to suck way too much water. I also want to be on the diagonal because when this actually kicks, I don't want to be, like let's say I was sitting right here, well I'm going to get kicked out. And so you have this, the bow is getting kicked this way, the stern gets kicked down. And if that's true, there's a potential that, you know, I need to play around with staying more neutral and actually driving my feet down into the floor if that's true. I just thought that's thinking on the fly. But if this bow is actually going to get kicked one way and the stern is actually going to get driven in, that's only going to be very, that's only going to happen is if I'm neutrally sit. See, the stern hardly moves at all, but I do capture it with that paddle stroke. So that is something to play around with. The boat spinning when you're neutral. And let's see this hit right here. Yeah, I would say that's a fairly neutral spin. I am up on the high side. But the bow is going to hit. I'm going to jump to this high side. I'm going to say this neutral width. The bow is going to go up. The stern's going to drive down visibly more. So watch that. And it does. Yeah, hell yeah. This spin, because I jumped high to the diagonal, the stern doesn't go down, and that's why I really have to lock it in with the prise. So that is kind of interesting, but two different dynamics going on there. Okay, hell yeah. And unless there's something... No, that was it. So we're done with the weighted. Hell yeah, back to the spuddin'. So this is a Koi. This is actually getting air on the first wave. Like that's not like that's not out of the water pixel by pixel. That's a hell of amount of air. You know, there's no daylight under, but that's like even from an R1 that would be pretty sweet. So I just wanted to show that clip. So a light R1 boat, that's why that Sotar Excalibur definitely has the ability to catch air. Okay. This is groundbreaking. Is it like, no, I'm just joking. But this is where R1, like no one knows if it's hard or easy. Is it hard? Is it easy? Is it or something's impossible? You know, or like, does anyone care at all? But when an inflatable kayak does something that kayaks have, you know, been doing since the early 2000s, and some from 95 on, you know, in the early 90s, when you have the same shape, now I'm not knocking the Spud at all, I'm just like, how does this reflect from R1? It's just like, I love when, so hell yeah, I mean, that's such a, and I think he has one where he actually sticks it, but yeah, we can just watch this, but I think this move, that move can go R1, you know, that was kind of the, it's interesting that it takes something that looks inflatable, or that is inflatable, to be like, oh, that's inflatable. Can an R1 do it? And I don't know if it's just, it's inflatable, so it's definitely more difficult because, you know, you just have... Hell yeah. Yeah, you don't have perfect pieces of plastic exactly where you want them. But hell yeah. Okay, sweet. And so, let's see. Was this a highlight clip? Oh yeah, stills. And then so this move is on the reverse, and so so hell yeah. So that move is on the reverse. Oh, and that is the one that he sticks. So hell yeah. So hell yeah. We'll watch this one more time. Yeah, because he starts in the fakie position. So from an R1 perspective, hell yeah, that's fakie. And the reason this works is because your body weight's near the stern is shorter. And then so there's a little eddy in here from the other clip where he has POV, point of view. And so, well, he does it even the time that he tips over, he actually drives into this eddy, turns around. This time he kind of just turned around early and then reversed and then just kind of goes fakie. But this allows this stroke to be a forward stroke, which is more dominant. And then, and I don't think, yeah, you can't toggle frame by frame back on these. So hell yeah, but we do get one more. Hell yeah. All right, so booyah. So an R1 can do that. That would be, yeah, I'm just, in Montana, we don't have little waterfalls everywhere. That's the thing, is just like take advantage of what you have. Be grateful for it. Don't, I remember I just went on like I was able to go on the road trip and I was able to go to the whitewater parks and someone's like, I don't have a whitewater park near me. Or, you know, like the commercial ones. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm the Rocky Balboa of boating in some sort of ways because I'm not afraid to just spend all day at a little eddy. You know what I mean? Or the lake. You know, I'm like one of the only that will just show lake footage. And so that is, I don't, you know, like, I don't, like, it's actually a mystery. I don't know if people, and this is a good, you know, we're just going to watch this on repeat because this is a hella, oh yeah, this is Isaiah Brown. Yeah, so, and I just really appreciate how he does the R1 discipline. I don't know if he's an OC1 boater. I'm thinking of a different person when it comes to that. But my question is, are the extreme athletes that are only posting, and I get it, you typically only want to post your best of your best to set an image, and I just don't care a lick about an image because I want to see progression in a lot of things in life, and we've gone through a few stages. But even this, just doing voiceover that someone would actually be listening this deep, you know, that's the fact that I've captured you. We've worked on that. That's not just that's a paying attention skill, and I think that comes from, you know, the same analogy. I hate analogies. Sorry about that. But yeah, paddling around a lake. It's like I can be a class 5 boater if I spent more time on the lake. All right, now we're just saying nonsense. But it is true, yeah. It's like if I spent every day, if I just paddled every day and all I had is a lake, oh yeah, you'd be a monster. And just a lot, yeah, you have to be creative to build the skill. But yeah, this is going boating. And yeah, very good skill. Now also a kayaker, I'm sure all these spud runners are kayakers, which is different. That's unique because you can be a kayaker and then you switch to spud. Like R1ers, like guided 14-foot rafts and then they switch to a 10-foot boat. You know, there's no, knowing how to kayak actually doesn't help you R1. And that's where it's just like, I think like people like Isaiah Brown could actually talk about that. To be like, hey, I am a really solid kayaker. Here's what I see that's difficult in rafting. Here's what I see that I think like I excel at, you know, like in a magical way, or you know what I mean? Just like, you know, it's because I put in the dues as a lifelong kayaker. Hell yeah. All right, so this is my neck of the woods. This is a 5-hour drive away up in Spokane. And this is on the Spokane River. And I think I'd be able to get the opportunity to paddle with this. This is Colin Hislop. I never know how to say people's names, but it's Colin. Hell yeah. And yeah, this is some rad spud surfing. I actually want to do R1 this wave. And it's just so fascinating. I'll be able to R1 this wave, but this is a wave where it's just like, hell yeah, this spud is doing way better on it. And it looks like it's angled and fast, and like I just probably just get pieced out, you know. It'd actually be very difficult potentially for me to hang on this wave. And this really shows the dynamics of a spud. Because one of my designs was just like, well, should we just hook two spuds together? And for sure you should. Alright, hell yeah. I definitely, you know, rest in peace, Ben Orton. This is one of my favorite videos. This is Freeride 2000. This whole video, and we have a few of these clips. So, oh, bummer. So this one is, what does he do on this one? Top hole boof, and this is a ear dip. You know, so I think this video, everything in this video I think R1s can do. And so this is kind of a cool video to be like, okay, hell yeah, someone needs to do the first ear dip. Or a lean boof. Booyah. And then, hell yeah, someone needs to do the first, and then pop outs. You know what I mean? I never thought just to like pop out and just been like, hell yeah. Hell yeah, Ben. And so, cartwheels, I think, can be done when it comes to R1. Like I said, at least slice your stern. And there's no reason the bow needs to be, you could do a full slice. Is that what they call them? Hell yeah. And then so the rock flare, for sure. And then so I think there's like a lot of these moves, especially the R1ers that are doing waterfalls, if you have plastic underneath your boat gets heavier. But I mean, if you have a combination of plastic and air inflated, like life is going to be amazing as an R1er. You could literally boof now. Like the plastic is what makes, I mean, it's like to longboarding what, you know, whatever the plastic you have, like pucks. You know, it's like you need that for fun. And so there's, yeah, so I just thought of that, you know, but hell yeah. Yep, and then just a lot of attaining. Okay, so hell yeah, you should definitely watch this video. And then, yep, so the pop out, yeah, this is something that I even want to try from R1. And I think, you know, from the cockpit of an R1, you would be able to actually get your feet closer to the bow. I haven't really thought of how that, like, do you actually get rid of the front thwart? Do you have the front? This is where I get, you know, I need to get my dryer, talk without, like, I'm aware of that. Okay, hell yeah. But, yeah, so I think a pop out to an R1 is, like, could you actually get your feet all the way to the bow? Because in a kayak, your feet are closer to the bow. And even in a normal size R1, could you get your feet and drive them all the way forward to actually get the boat perfectly vertical? And hell yeah, then you could pop out. And even if you flipped, it'd still be cool. You know, all right, hell yeah. Okay, so this also just shows, I think it's wildly fascinating. I think there was some point... Well, no, I've not seen these clips. Like I said, Instagram and all this stuff is brand new to me as of last year. So if you're just like, why haven't, you know, you seen all my clips and stuff? Is like Instagram literally about 5 or 6 months ago, maybe a year ago. That was the first time I've ever known any of this existed. And, alright, yeah, let's just watch this. But yeah, so hell yeah. A lot of the Colorado boaters, and this is Ethan Marsh. I think he is from the East Coast, like the, you know, Golly region, whether it's Tennessee, West Virginia. Don't quote me on that. All right, hell yeah. But it just shows the versatility of the stern. And it's always in a boat where you can easily get into the stern. I think that was the limitation. I think my boat actually doesn't have big compartments in the stern. I think they're plenty big, though. But this is where I want to take this tech. Don't say tech. Anyway, just take the, you know, the technology and be able to do the same move while sitting in the middle cockpit. So you make a shorter boat, you get slicier, low volume. You get a place where you can actually sit back there, but then you have maybe even farther back, lower volume, and then like look at the kayaker slicing behind, definitely, hell yeah. All right, we're done with this. But yeah, it's kind of one of the more interesting things. And what I haven't seen people do at all is because a lot of the surfers aren't, they're either all sitting in the back surfing. No one kind of mixes it up. Where no one's sitting in the back and then jumping to the middle compartment. So I've not seen that where someone's like, okay, I'm going to sit in the back and do my thing, but then I'm actually going to jump to the middle compartment. And this is also, yeah, if you've not seen this, that's kind of a landmark in R1. First tomahawk. Hell yeah. And I actually didn't put 2 and 2 together. Like I saw this, but yeah, it's like when you actually relate it to an actual, so this is Ethan Marsh. And we're going to watch a few clips because, oh yeah, so hell yeah. So I can talk about that entry move, and then we're going to see one more clip on the way out. Hell yeah, let's try to break this one down from our physics. The entry move I can do. And so right here, this is where the boat is doing a shoulder spin. It's catching incoming water, and if I was to initiate a shoulder spin, where would I want to be? I would want to be on the diagonal, so I'd want to sit on this tube. The bow is going to hit there and spin, and then I would want to pry the boat in. I want to get the stern into the wave. Being on the low side, he's more over onto this low side, but does kind of shift his weight. That low side always helps grip in, and so that can take the place of a paddle stroke. And so even just that is very fascinating. This entrance move, you're doing a shoulder spin, but because you are on the low side, it low side spins around. So let's talk about that one more time. And so this would be the high side over here, but he's sitting over here on this lower tube, kind of, and then neutral. He jumped to the high side right at the end. But definitely you can always drive a spin by being on the lower tube or just going low in the pile. And I think that's not intuitive. It's counterintuitive. It's like if you have a pile, we're always taught to like high side up against the pile. But on these small waves, and even if it's a big wave, you might want to be recognizing your spatialness when it comes to being in this part, this region, the lower part. And then so like right now you're moving your body towards the low side. And this works because you're fakie position at the bow, so none of this is actually striking and kicking you out. And so hell yeah, that's a full 360. Or more. Let's count the rotations. Yeah, so you're facing upriver, and now you're facing upriver. Full 360. So that's a hell of a cool entrance move. And then what are we going to turn towards the camera here? So we're turning up against the pile. If we were, we'd be striking on that opposite side. I would want to be on this side prying. And so even just right there, he is a right, he's at least leaning into it and doesn't even need to pry to actually bring that spin around. Okay, so hell yeah. Full breakdown. And then this R1er just goes for it. This might be the most daredevil R1er. Yeah. I mean, you can get known for a lot of things, but this R1er is yeah. Does that make sense? Hell yeah. And then yeah, because this clip probably shows it. And this is clean up your mess though too. This is an amazing clip because it's like when something goes wrong, like hell yeah, you signed up for this. And yeah, that's just a remarkable save right there. he didn't have anything to grab onto either. Like, I don't even know if there's a strap going across the throat. Not really. Maybe he had those air straps. Let's take a look at that, because I'm always impressed at what people are grabbing onto and getting in. Sometimes it feels like, oh man, that person's just like a superhero. And me, it's like, I don't even know how to get in a boat. Okay, so this hand's on the perimeter line. That hand maybe grabs something. Maybe he's got a grab strap. But yeah, that other hand was pulling on. Yeah, but yeah, that's really fascinating. So definitely, this clip brings up this is for all of us R1ing, is kayakers have a bomber roll. Like, we don't have bomber reflips or pull ourselves back in the boat. It's always just half, hey, we got a little strap here, maybe that helps. But you know what I'm saying? It's not even built into the design of a boat. Like, you know what I mean? The perimeter, sorry about that. The perimeter line is like an accessory that helps. Like, think about it. Is the perimeter line in the most ideal location? If you could move the perimeter line 2 inches down or 2 inches up, and it increases your ability to pull yourself in and reduces and increases your effectiveness by like 40%, like, obviously you would do that. It's just like, I use the word bro science to my dentist. So I was just like, yeah, R1 rafting is like bro science. It's like we do our best, but yeah. And so you do get that kind of Superman-esque where you're just like, whoa, look at that. All right, so this is a front flip, or an attempt. But the best attempt, this is where, it's like, hell yeah. In an R1, do your straight airs. And so it'll show up in a second. Yeah, right there. Booyah. That was a pretty damn good attempt. And I can't go frame by frame, so we're going to move on. Okay, so this is Ethan Marsh doing, this is Tunnel Rapid on Gore. And so that's a spiced line. And I bring this up because he is wedged. He's in that wedged position, and this is what I need to do more. And I think I've noticed the people that are going big, like, they're for sure not jumping around. We're going to look at a clip that I know a person was kind of like watching my footage. And that's what I really appreciate about the sport of R1 is like, well, and especially my personality. Sometimes it's just like, I can imagine someone wants to boat the exact opposite of the way I do just because, hey, I know I can rub off wrong on some people. Hell yeah. We're definitely different. And so that's what I really actually enjoy about R1ing, because then I can see what they're doing and being like, does that have benefits? What's the pros and cons? And can I And so hell yeah. So this is a fully wedged in position. And this hole is sticky as, keeps with it. And this is tricky as hell because like when you're paddling on your strong side, it's so easy to turn the boat. And hell yeah. And so just to stick with this, it's more just timing and being able to stick with that and just like to ride that up. There's a lot of, you see this in a lot of the extreme athletes, is they have an uncanny knack of patience, and that usually always ends up, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, that just turned out right. Where I've always thought like, hey, and that's the same rapid, that's just the left run, which actually goes a lot easier. So if you do have water in here and you're able to kind of slide over, get a little piece of a boof on that, this left side, now you do have a big undercut. As long as you don't go under that thing, you can get death wedged under that. But if you were ever to do this solo, like I was thinking about it for a second, do I do Gore solo? Hell no, you just get stuck and then you're just... and cry. But yeah, if you get stuck, you need to get pulled out. A lot of those things don't come out, and then your boat could be actually just permanently stuck in that hole. But yeah, that's a hell of an undercut. But if you're over here, the flip risk, just getting stuck in tunnel is way less. And am I saying that right? There's a rapid called Tunnel, and I think this is Tunnel, and there's a rapid called, now is there a rapid called Toilet Bowl, or is that Toilet Bowl on Tunnel? You know, sometimes I've not run it, so. This is actually a classic R1 that's, hell yeah, like, put that on your bucket list. And so this is, hell yeah. Yeah, and this is like, hey, I got away with one. That's not Ethan Marsh. That's a buddy. But look at that. You know what I mean? And then you can see the difference. You know what I mean? You can see like, okay, this looks like this is person's first time. You're like, hey, but this could be anyone's first time. Holy hell, okay. You know. Yep. And he did everything right. He high-sided on all the right rocks, and he's just gotten that big adjective grin. Holy hell. That's a cool clip. That is honestly one of my favorites. Just because you could tell that's exactly what he expected. You know, he didn't... That was a good one. All right. Hell yeah. And then so we're going to watch Ethan Mark do the Green River. And this is wild because this is you can watch the whole thing. It's just a rock low water mess. But to do Gorilla, like this is one of the most intense places. Now it did change. I don't know if you're able to do it in R1, but look at that. It just, you know it's not, like you know that 10 out of 10, that's not going to work. I don't know what I'm saying, but hell yeah. To make this line work, but there is physics. I mean, if you actually follow the physics, you drive up that's going to slide you into this, and that's, you know, it's like one of those, I hope I didn't, yeah, sorry about that. We totally got messed up, but there it is. So we got Gorilla. That's a huge hit at the top. And kind of a blind hit. I'm sure all these waterfalls, I've not really run waterfalls at all, but that just looks, you know, and if that tips on you halfway, I mean, obviously this is just a wild. And we're going to watch some others that have actually done this. So this is Conrad Niven. And this is probably one of the... Yeah, so we could watch this all the way through. I mean, there's no way that he came out totally unscathed right there, where he's just like, oh, I didn't hurt my bum at all. I mean, that's real rock. Holy Toledo. But that is this wild because you can learn a lot from the athletes that are like, oh, I'm ready to push some limits. And so, yeah, so this next waterfall is definitely that. I think this is hella steep, and then we get to see the clips from below. But yeah, this is just, look at this thing. Hell yeah. All right, and so now we get to see the clip from this eddy. He's got, or no, way up here. Yeah, so this is the same drop. And, yeah, it's like one of the most impressive clips in R1. Hell yeah. All right, and then this is his gorilla run. I mean, this is something where it's just like, huh. Oh. And manages to survive. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we're all watching the same thing. Like, right? It's a waterfall that has rocks on both sides. I mean, that's, at face value, that's what it is. And there's no clean drop into a pool. You know what I mean? So you need to stay with your boat. And your boat could do something funny and just front pitch as well. Like, look at that. It front pitches him right there, just like a waterfall does. And at an unexpected time. Like, this is kind of interesting because after this first hit, this is your main waterfall that you need to. I mean, the physics of it is you need to instead of high side, you need to like low side the other direction. Typically on river waves, you need to jump downriver. Not on pour overs. Pour overs, you need to jump back. And so hell yeah. So let's compare this to see where he leans back. Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, it's unmistakable the mindset of these athletes, especially Ethan. Holy hell! I mean, it's just like the calmness where you're going with the flow. You know, you did everything you could, and you're using all your skills to your advantage. It is quite amazing. Because I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like very. I'll have to work on that skill of just like the who cares. I do it at the surf wave all the time, but it's just always in low consequence environments. To have that same, flexibility of just like chillness is kind of interesting. And this, holy hell. I mean, this is just shows the realness of something that actually landed. And whew. And it shows you the physics, like that's so fascinating. So on this one, this rolls over this way as well as drops, and so you want to be over onto this left side. And so is this a waterfall where, and this happens all the time in R1, is R1ers probably don't know anything about their opposite side, because you can get so talented at one side of the boat and so garbage at the other that it would be an embarrassment to even sit over there. And I think that's what's happening at the high levels, where it's just like I'm trying to make a lot of tutorials, and I'll try to make a lot of more on opposite side paddling, because it's just like there's some moves where it's just like, why didn't you do that? It's like, I mean, I would tell myself that. I don't know, I have my own way of doing that, but yeah, it's just like, well, because I had someone on the sixth stutter, seventh, but on Pillow, we can watch this a few times. I was running Pillow Rock, and I hit inertia, and I turned sideways into inertia because I knew I wanted to do that. And someone's like, well, why did you do that? And I never even thought, that was a good question, because I never even thought twice about thinking that I could just obviously tag it square. I think that was something in my mindset where I'm just like, no, you can't tag a huge hole square because it's going to be unpredictable. I think that's where I was going for. I didn't have that skill in my game to be like, I don't know what's going to happen after I tag it square. But I do know what's going to happen if I tried to toaster it and I just fell out of the boat. But I knew what was going to happen. All right, one more time on this. Oh, yeah. So we're going to compare. Because this is a right side boater. Is Ethan a left side boater? Because obviously you want to be on that tube. This tube's going to bug. And he grabs onto actually this side. So, I mean, that is super bizarre. Where it's just like, hell, no, he's a right side boater. But can see that this drop needs to be held onto that. Yeah, I mean, I think that is, that's not easy, so, and I talk about this video to be like, are you running on intuition, or are you running on like, I knew that was going to happen and that's the skill I'm using? Because, like I said, 10 years ago, I potentially could have been a better boater, or was a better boater in a lot of regards. And, just by going with heavy intuition, just being on the water more, let's say, than to actually try to figure out some of the physics and then throw some methods into practice. And that's where I was saying on the inertia hole, is just like my method was to hit sideways instead of maybe just kind of going with the flow. Going with the flow, I probably would have been fine. That was definitely kind of a turning point, because turning sideways on that, I hung on to the perimeter line and actually pulled definitely pulled my hand muscles, and I had to cut that trip short, and that kind of sucked. Hell yeah. All right, so done with that clip. But yeah, definitely if you've, because yeah, he's only on Instagram, you know what I mean, and only a few clips because he's only gonna post the big stuff, you know, so it can maybe hit just the recreational audience. Conrad, hell yeah. And he's a U.S. paddler. I mean, I don't even know if he's a U.S. paddler, but he's on a paddling whitewater team. So RIFF.raft racing. And so hell yeah. It's where you get good. Just get behind grab a paddle every day for your, rest of your life. All right. So we're almost kind of home stretch here. I bring up Dane Jackson because he does a lot of smooth stuff that you can do and R1ers can do. This is the line that I actually wanted to do. I didn't know, and I'm so glad I didn't do it because now I'm taking a look at it. That is the big hole. So that's the big hole on a, so we're in, what is this? This is insignificant. This is the huge hole in insignificant. It's hella sticky on that left side. You go over in an R1 boat over this nub, you're going to be toast. But actually watching this footage, I didn't realize that actually he hits this far to the right. And so we can actually see in this next footage, whoops, going this direction. This is a different run. Same thing, we're going to eddy out, well, different. We're going to eddy out here and then go across. And then we're actually going to be like, and then kind of attain this to get way the hell up there. And then once we go right here, now we can just do a straight run, and now we're to the left side of that hole. Probably should have let you watch that all the way through. But that's that big hole. And I said left side, I meant right side. So the right side of this hole is angled. One, it's angled. And so even if you did get stuck, you have an exit. It's this right here that's hella sticky. You know what I mean? It's actually... it's smiled, but I mean, it sticks you right there. It's difficult to get to the exits. Does that make sense? Where you're just like this would be, well, that would be a huge smile. So, yeah, this is starting to frown a little bit, but yeah, let's not talk about that. All right. But definitely the right side of this hole, like sorry about the stuttering, the raft companies will hit over here. So if you don't know about this big hole, the right side is hella clean. The middle is hella sticky, middle and left. Like if you don't get far enough left and you do tag this, you can stick your raft and flip. So hell yeah. All right, so we are going to look at this move because I tried to do, well, let's look at my footage. And so I just didn't catch this eddy. I wanted to use Dane Jackson's line where he actually catches, and this is a classic catch right there. I just didn't catch it. Bummer. I didn't catch this eddy. It's very difficult. And so we do our best. I only tried this once. I only ran the upper gully twice when I was there, just because it's, I don't know, to me it's intense, and I'm doing it by myself. Like I don't have any support, so if crap goes wrong here, I just take care of myself. And so that's, and you have to take care of yourself anyway. Like if you have a team of people, then you have, you more like, hey, if you have an emergency, like how to get, transport, stuff like that. That is very helpful. So definitely by myself, risk reward. And I was trying to, maybe just a little bit of timing right there, but yeah, trying to drive into this and definitely get my pad. I didn't know, I thought it was just an easy eddy, but definitely next time, same thing, but I'm going to dive to this bow and actually going to hold that. So I need to get that water, like right there, dive for that bow, and then hold that, catch that eddy. Because if I did, hell yeah. And so we just get pieced out. But it's not a bad line because if you go over here, you're way far left of this. That's not even the hole. You thought that was the hole. Nope, the hole is way over there. There's the hole. So the line that Dane Jackson does is quite impressive because you're eddying out here and you're driving across here and then you're driving over. And so the first clip, he just actually hits this hole sideways and uses that to actually get over there, which would be difficult in an R1 raft, and you would probably end up just going right for the hole. And so let's take a look at that. Oh yeah, hell yeah. So this is insignificant. And so he's going to drop into this and cut across, and just a couple strokes, and then get to that right side of that hole. And look at the effortlessness. There is physics here of boat design. And so this is where I want to improve R1 boat design. Like, obviously, if you had a lightweight hard shell, like, you actually get to transfer all this and smooth surfaces. You know, it's just like, that is where R1 is harder, trying to do things that kayaks are doing with just effortless strokes. Now, there is the know-how of exactly where your location is, but I mean, heck, I wanted to do this, but I think it would be very hard to actually get over this. He's actually using edges to edge the left side, and then once he gets over this, then he's edging the right side. That, you know, just because you're able to paddle on both sides, but to do that in an R1 boat, you know, very quickly, or to even switch sides, I think is something that I would like to, you know, work on when it comes to R1 design, and I think would be very useful. So this is the catch the eddy, and I think an R1 boat can do this, surf across, try to attain that, even if you're not able to attain all the way up here, but just, hell yeah, and then just, you know, clear that hole on the right side. That's the line that I want to do. I think an R1 could do that, and I think that shows, you know, like what R1 is capable of. I would like to see more R1ers do that type of stuff, attainment lines. I think they're the most difficult, because I think they don't, you know, they don't have the eye candy of, like, you know, what people are filming. But yeah, but obviously people aren't doing lines like those. I mean, there is definitely letting gravity take you down the river. And so lines that are must make, I think, are pretty cool from that. Now here shows this left hole, and I'm bringing this up. There's 3 kayakers that hit this hole right. You'll see it. Hell yeah. So they're all stuck in this hole. So this is the hole on Insignificant. I bring this video up because, like, you got 3 kayakers getting, you know, graded in this hole, and this kayaker has the wherewithal not to swim, and rights himself and then works his way out. And I think that's a fundamental, I think from an R1 perspective, like, you know, especially like, hey, you know, R1ing the Stikine and stuff like this. This should just be every day, to actually tag this hole in an R1 and find your way out, and by R1 design, make sure you're not going to flip. But I mean, this isn't the best place you want to be. And other people have showed, you know, I mentioned my line before going in 2020 or 2025 this last year, and someone's like, oh no, Dane's like a... And don't think of it that way, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, you do have your superheroes in the sport, and then they obviously can do things that maybe no one can do, but then they also are showing you paths that, you know, it's like, hey, anyone could do this. I'm just doing it, you know? And I think that line through this Insignificant is one of those. And especially because of this consequence. Like, look at these, you know, like, kayakers that, yeah, that does not look like fun. And, but still, this is kind of part of what they signed up for. And I just think that's actually pretty incredible to stick with that. And that's just, even like going into that whole solo, let alone with the clutter of 2 other boats, 3 boats in that hole. That's crazy. All right, so now we're going to move on to Atticus. This is Atticus Redding, if I have that last name right. And this is the vertical, this is kind of the, the 181 weeks ago. So I think this is kind of the, I'm just going to think that it's the first. I think it's the first clips of these vertical moves off the stern and these blunts. Because we've shown that, and he's got... he has one blunt that goes that I think I pulled up. I think he's got a lot of these full rotations, 360s that go. But hell yeah. And yeah, that 180 is hella cool. So, and what would that be categorized as? It's always interesting to, put the physics. Okay, so we're not low siding this turn. You know what I mean? Like this is the low side tube. So this would be a traditional spin. We're just from a fakie. So this is a fakie spin. And this happens actually all the time. Like when you're actually in an R1 in the middle compartment, when you're going around a wave like in a smiley face, when you're going backwards, well, you're going to be on this high side and then you're going to paddle forward to get the boat to spin. And so that's what we have. So we have a paddle forward. And that's just a high-sided spin. Hell yeah. And then how about this next one? This is a low side because he's kind of centered, but oh shoot. All right, so again, we're not low. This is the low side too if we're spinning this way. So we're just dropping this in, and then we're just doing a high side. But look at that. Look, that is really wild that he actually lays that up vertical. So this is actually pretty sweet that you can, this is some of the first, what do you call it, braces? I don't even know the term just because R1 bracing seems impossible. The second you lean out of the boat, how can you actually pull yourself back in? All right, hell yeah. All right, hell yeah. So this is the Salida wave. This is Scout wave. This is the one that actually has the big concrete, for the surfers at high flow. But at low flow, he's showing that, and I'm just showing this how stable it is, you know what I mean, from the back of the boat. And look at all the boat that's out of the water that's not touching. He's effectively surfing on like this reminds me of like Air's couch. Like, it's like you can have an R1 boat that's just this width in the back. Look at this. Like if you just had this totally cut off and then just like heavy weight right here, the torque would be the same and the dynamics would be identical. This weight, from, do you guys do statics? Where you're just like, this is weight and it's torquing, but your contact to the water is just this location. And so as long as you had the same weight torquing, you could have the same profile. You could literally surf a couch. And so I just really think that's interesting in R1 design to be like, like smaller is cooler. Like, well, smaller could be more functional if you're able to do more cool things. Like obviously larger raft R1 surfing is dinosaur. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's where we used to be. And if the objective is to do like trick A, B, C on repeat, then sure, like that's where the future of R1, it's like, that's where this will always exist. You could why not put a 14-foot hole? Like you could do this with a 14-foot boat in this hole. That's what I was trying to say. And like 14-foot boat R1ing the upper gully. Like that's what I witnessed when I went to the upper gully just by myself in 2013 with just the skills of a raft guide that, probably could have guided the gully, social skills of a Martian. Was that a good joke? Probably not. Hell yeah. But yeah, so, and that's a dinosaur. R1ing a 14-foot boat down the upper, it's cool because you can do it. It's, that's the cool thing about R1ing is you have like where it started. And a lot of the future of R1ing is looking at the past, and this past is deep. It's like these moves. So hell, look at that. All right, so that's a full spin and then even more, but that is a stick. And so let's take a look at this. Okay, so are we gonna spin that way? Because if we are, that he's on the low side. So he's low side spinning. And so all we're looking at is where the boat's spinning and then what location he's on. He's on the left side. And so he's low side. Well, let's see where he turns actually. Oh, no, he's turning the other way. But now that is the low side. Yeah, so he's sitting totally neutral, but he's driving his body into the low side. and then it goes past. So that is kind of the interesting thing that I think I'm picking up on the fly, is that once you drive that low side in all the way back, now you're on the high side. So now you're on this side. And this is a really wild maneuver because he's actually reaching all the way back behind and bringing that in stable. But I think I just learned a lot here. And I don't want to go back to the Wenatchee, but it's similar to when two people are surfing in a hole, like a big sticky hole. What happens is that one person will be doing this. They'll be going past this point, and this only really works is if you're sitting on the very end to get past that point, and it keeps you in there because you're right here. You're getting pushed up into the wave, and you're locked in, and that's where these blunts can actually work. But it requires all your weight to be right there. And again, from the physics and the fundamentals, this fakie position, this is just sitting in an R1 fakie. And what I would like to see is you be able to sit in the same position with your feet in the center compartment. But hell yeah. And then like this, once you're driven in, you're kind of locked where the incoming water, sure, it's trying to push you, but because these moves are done so vertical, already it's just pushing you into the wave, and you are locked. So that is very fascinating from this, and you're able to do that full 360. Okay, hell yeah, we can maybe watch this all the way through, and then we'll move on. Hey, and we're almost done. I know you can't see what the videos are next. I can't either. But hell yeah, I feel like this is going to be a successful video. It's hard to be like kind of chill. Like, I guess for me, especially pulling up other people's content and making it, positive. Where you're not saying negative things, or I don't know if that's just human nature or America. Joking, but alright. Hell yeah. Okay, and I think this is actually Kenny on Atticus's channel. Oh, this is fascinating. This is great because look at this. After saying like you can't say negative things, I find this funny, because the Colorado boaters, are doing all their surfing from the back of the boat, and this is a specific video that says you can't catch this surf wave from this position. So let's do this breakdown. Because actually, this is a perfect... There's two ways to catch a surf wave. It doesn't matter whether you're on one side or another. If you have good forward momentum, and they say, they're always trying to catch from the back by starting way high. That's kind of one of their tips. And then dropping in, bomb dropping, and then getting caught by the surf. But if you have good forward momentum with your paddle pry, you can cross over the eddy line and then drive to wherever you want to go. So you can come in low, you can come in middle and turn, and it doesn't really matter. Actually coming in high from the center and dropping in, you might actually get washed out, and I think that's what they're showing. Coming in high, you have all this momentum, and you're just going to ride up over the wave, and your bow hits a little bit. But what's happening is you just don't have any forward momentum to counter, and weight's too far forward so that actually hits. Because even when I am paddling, I'm always way to the back, and so I'm accentuating what the Colorado boaters are doing from the back, and I'm trying to actually get better at capitalizing on that. The more back you are, because if you actually get a lot of momentum coming in, let's say we're coming in right through here, and you get a lot of momentum, and you're sitting towards the back. I need to get some water. From the middle compartment, I can sit near the back, and I'm freeing up, let's say, half the boat. It's not 3/4, but half the boat can actually cross over this current before my weight actually hits, and then I can easily drive in that extra 2 feet. And so, sure, this is going to stop your momentum early, but yeah, so that's where driving from the back. So I would come in lower with more speed. But just that, more speed in R1 might be not part of your repertoire. I think those fundamentals of paddling around a lake and working on how fast you can go, or just day in, day out, working on your speed, are just because these boats are, yeah, they're big dinosaurs. You know, it's just like we're doing the best with what we can, but yeah, that little extra juice. But hell yeah, and then so they're gonna show how to surf. But I just thought this was a very fascinating video because this video came out for sure. I mean, this is 98 weeks, but I've been surfing from the middle compartment, and I find that funny, and I do like. I mean, life you need a little controversy, you know. So I do like I love psychology. Like, are people doing things differently because why? You know. So, and hell yeah. And so we're going to move on because they talk about how they surf. All these Colorado boaters surf from the back of the boat. And they're all from Colorado. You know, so it's just kind of interesting. But look at that. That's super stable. You can't take that away though, you know. And so that's something that, like, I think needs to be emphasized. There is no reason we can't have this stability with the feet in the center compartment, you know, with a heavy lean back, because that is just unreal stability. And it's just a matter. I talked about the minutes in R1, and I just haven't put any time and effort into doing any surf tricks from the back. Yeah. Well, mainly because, like I said, I don't think I came across this Instagram stuff until last year. I didn't know it existed. And it's been, you know, definitely out. Like Atticus Redding has been 97 weeks, 98, 139 weeks. There's 52 weeks in a year. It's only a couple years ago, you know what I mean? But still, it seems... yeah, he got his start in 2023. I did the Grand Canyon in 2017. But that's where it's just like, I dig the people that are doing their own thing. That's why I'm not commenting on videos, because it's just like, go do your thing, because like, yeah, hell yeah. All right, so this is same tunnel, but look at this. This is 840. I was gonna R1 this by myself, and what a dumb decision, because I would have died right there. Just like, whoops. There's just, it's weird how there's even 100 CFS and this thing does not fill in, because this is that line where if you go to the left, you do this boof over here. But maybe this is just a center rock where you either go left or right. But yeah, that's good to know. But yeah, right down this slot and then trying to get yourself out of that hole. And again, like, I just really find it, look at that skill. I don't think I have that determination of high siding. And so I'm saying that because I need to ingrain that. I need to find holes where it's just like make sure I high side. And what I found is I just jump out of the boat, and so I don't know if it's my design where, no, they're slippery and stuff, but let's look at this. But to land and not just fall out of the boat, because you still have to land, have your feet wedged, and then go for the high side. You can't just jump out of the boat, which I find myself weirdly doing. And so that's really good technique there. All right, hell yeah. And yeah, this is gore. Yeah, let's watch this. I mean, I pulled it up. So this is a left R1er running gore, super smooth. Hell yeah. I think that's a bucket list for all R1ers, to get a smooth gore line, or just do a gore line. Hell yeah. I mean, that's within my capability to go down to Gore Fest. All right, hell yeah. And this is me running kind of the bigger houndstooth. This would be one of, you know, the probably easy class 5. That's the only hit, and then you have a pretty decent run out. But like, I messed it up, you know. So like, I'm actually more likely to mess things up with my boating style, and so I need to be paying attention to that. We do drop in sideways, and so let's take a look at this frame by frame, because I have a tendency to actually high side and then fly out of the boat. I have a tendency to not have this foot wedged in at all, and so I didn't even notice that's a huge thing. I don't I think what I need to do is actually drop low. You just drop to the floor. There's so many situations where dropping to the floor is your more stable maneuver. Like dropping to the floor isn't going to flip your boat right away because this is going to purl. And so, and this is one of those where, like, I'm trying to get left to right momentum, and I'm trying to get around that rock. Did you see that? So you have a bump. Probably can't see it, but you have this bump over here. This is a rock, so you have to go to the left of it with left to right momentum. But then there's a seam down there, and I guess I just didn't scout right away. But then I'm sure I'm looking at that seam right now, and I'm like, I didn't like the looks of it, at all. And so, but I didn't have in my repertoire that, like, I maybe overestimated like the flippiness of this. Or who cares if it's a hole, go surf it. That's the mindset that these other paddlers, kind of in their chillness, definitely have. And so, and just drop. And so I'm just using this video to be like, hell yeah, get low, just drop to the floor, hang on and drop to the floor. Ditch my paddle. It's like, I've always thought of that, of just like, your paddle's not worth. I need to do that more psychologically, to be like, you know what, at any moment in this rap, especially here, I guess I don't need my paddle for the rest of it. I could instantly drop my paddle and go for that high side. Just because this is a sharp river with very sharp blast rock, who knows what locations have the worst of it, but it can be, oh yeah. So I tried my best, and I did drop my paddle, so at some point I dropped my paddle because I was just like, it's not worth it. And then we get our spare and we get our paddle. All right, hell yeah. All right, we're gonna watch this one more time, and I think that's how we're kind of ending this, because that toaster move is the toaster of the center. I need to watch that again. We're going to watch that toaster move again. Totally gets toastered. Holy Toledo. But yeah, that's a vertical off the bow to a toaster. And then this. Hell yeah. And the wild thing that move can go. You know what I mean? Because we were showing the dynamics between the blunt and here, so this is the fakie blunt, and it on a corner, and it brings the boat around. Hell yeah. So is it a fakie blunt? Sure. The blunt is driving this outside turn and then jumping for the other side, digging that in. If the boat goes vertical, that actually helps the spin, and that helps actually right the boat. If the boat doesn't go vertical, there's a chance that you could, I don't know, but anyway, it's just interesting physics, but this actually goes, and we talked a little bit about the physics behind that move. That is a move that I definitely want to exploit. Hell yeah. This was before the Grand Canyon, and this wave right here, I knew I had to hit a few times. And so this is where we get a good surf on it. But even that hit right there, that hit my face, man. It kind of hurt. Or actually just jarred my neck. Like, that hit was nasty enough to jar my neck. So it's just kind of fascinating. Like, it looks pretty soft and pillowy and, like, not a big deal. But that was enough impact to be like, that sucked. But yeah, it was this wave that I paddled the Wenatchee as a guide, and I knew that it had features that would resemble the Grand Canyon, that if I couldn't hit that wave right there, then I wasn't ready for the Grand Canyon. So I tagged it a couple times. And so this is the first time just kind of looking, it's like, hell yeah, they were hitting it, so I had to skirt by. But this is the first time I hit it, and we actually do high side. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. We saw that one clip of like turning into a hole with a forward stroke and then being on the high side. I think that is effective. And this has two things. I definitely want to make more videos of holes, but what if I was way over here on the left and then I drive into the meat with my bow and then I paddle the stern is going to get kicked out the side, and it's going to pop-tart, and we're going to flip. And that's what happened on the locksaw a few times. And so there is spatial awareness of, like, if you are going to drive this paddle in where your boat does turn, you want the bow to pop-tart. So the sides of a hole are going to make your, like ends climb out. That's what I'm calling what pop-tarting is. So this climbs out, and that's where this second one actually climbs out, and then I go back in for the surf, which is also a physics that you can exploit. So let's take a look at this again. And so I'm overshooting on that right side when I do this move. And so I'm driving in, but I'm farther over to there on the right side towards the exit, and then that surfs me back in. Because we're looking at the physics of, this idea of Pop-Tart. And again, does that make sense? That, because I want to use terminology because it's easier. If I drive into this pile with the bow, that's going to stop. And the stern can explode to one way or the other. And that's where you do flip, which totally sucks. And so it is useful but it is useful to be on a high side and take a good stroke in. Whether you're taking a stroke in, there's two ways of doing this. But one is to hit a hole and then to have one side be high or the other side be high, because then you know what sides they're going to go. And so if, let's say I was just paddling on this right side and I wanted to angle towards this exit. Well, like right before I hit, and I'm angling that way, I would want to jump to this side, just because it's going to be the higher side. Here, I'm driving in with a paddle stroke, and I'm going to have the boat turn to the right and be on the high side. But I'm going to make sure the bow is towards the exit. So it's going to more or less eyelash off this hole, and then the stern is going to come into the meat, and then I'm going to have a more squarer surf. If you do the opposite, it happened to me on the locksaw, it's brutal, is because if I was more over here on the left and then I tag my bow and I don't know whether I'm straight or not, this stern can get whipped out this direction. And if if the stern got whipped this direction, it's so fast over here, it's going to pop-tart. And I'm already maybe up against the hole, especially if it is more of a hole, pour-over hole, and this is going to pop out, and then I'm already at the low side. Now, I might not flip right there, but once I drive in on the low side, then could be toast. All right, so hell yeah. And so here's that same move. But I think that is the dynamics that I can make hell of a lot of more videos on, because I'm kind of getting used to understanding. And these holes, like even just this hole, this is something that R1ers aren't touching. And I think they should. There's no danger to this hole. These are safe, fluffy holes, and these happen all the time on the Stikine. Even just holes like this, like there's safe, fluffy holes on the Stikine that aren't safe at all, because you can't lose your boat, and it's a death trap of safe, fluffy holes, and some that aren't safe and fluffy. But it's just that. It's just like, what are the skills required to get through a safe, fluffy hole when you're in R1? And I think if we don't have terminology for all the different mechanics of different ways of hitting this, then we're going in blind. So those are the videos that I can make. All right, hell yeah. And I think we're going to watch this one and then get to our next video. But I think I thought I was ending kind of on this idea. And so, no. So this is interesting. We probably got another 30 minutes, but who knows. So this is Frazee Water, and guaranteed, because he did the Grand Canyon solo 2021. Now he's got support. He's running empty raft, which is actually more crazy. There was a lot of added benefit for me to run my fully loaded boat. He's always going to be jumping to the high sides, and that's what I did on the Grand Canyon. That's what a lot of the R1ers that I've showed in this footage don't. They actually lock themselves in, and I dig it, because it shows you the physics of what's going to happen, and then you get to choose. You're like, this is sweet. You have R1ers that are doing different things. They have different styles. because like back there you got thrown out. You know, if you're going to be jumping around, your feet can't be locked in. And so you risk, so this is Indian Dick, but or the Rapid below, but yeah, Georgie maybe. I think that was Georgie. Where hell yeah, like this one I rammed up here because yeah, lower into these they can have folding currents where it's like always tag the first thing that you see, especially if it can set you free. I just made that up. That's a really good one though. Fuck yeah. I shouldn't have said the F word. Alright, so yeah, if you come in, especially on the Grand Canyon, if you know this isn't going to flip you, or who cares even if it does, if this is a green light down a tongue that's not going to throw you into these monster awfulness eddies, or especially if you have like holes, like yeah, always, whatever my rhyme was, I thank God I forgot it, but hell yeah, tag and be in the right locations. This is kind of interesting, but yeah, get momentum. But that is the other thing, it's impossible for R1ers that are newer to the sport to actually want, like people are saying this, like, why didn't I paddle, you know, and I was like huffing and puffing. You know, I every rapid was like weightlifting. By the time I get to the bottom, I'm spent, and I used as much energy as I could. And we're literally tanks. Where like one stroke of the diesel engine moves the tank and then stops the tank. Like you don't get coasting, and so that's where I really want to. Man, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job talking. We're gonna use that narcissism as comedy, but hell yeah. Oh, gross. But anyway, mainly it's that, no, we're just talking about me now. But yeah, a lot of jumping around, which I dig. Because I want to see more of that just because I do it, and I want to see if it works or not. All these other R1ers that are staying put. I also dig too because like we can see if that's better or not. Alright, I forgot what I was going to say. Hell, that is the one I did not skirt. Did a good job. And, like, yeah, this is, like, I thought, like, when you're skirting, this is the one you skirt. Salt Crystal. Salt Crystal. Joking. But anyway, yeah, I just thought, like, oh, so there's a rock right there. I just thought, okay, get to it. One time I got bumped off by a rock and I got thrown into the nasty. You know what I mean? And so like, hey, he's going to go by this rock right there. Hey, maybe that bumps you. Look at this rock right there. Maybe that just bumps you right into Crystal Hole. You know, so that's what I was worried about. And so on this one, I messed up. I thought I was going to take a huge left to right momentum, like maybe even start over here, you know, exaggeratedly, and then drive across. Effing don't do that. Sure, get left to right momentum, like, but do it way early or something like that. But don't mess around with like heavy left to right in the Grand Canyon. By the time you realize you're messed up, and like all these gradients, like once they start to drop, it is just like you're in a sluice that's going one direction. And so yeah, like the other, you can mess up on bedrock. Bedrock is just, you don't realize how you don't want to get bumped into oblivion and back into nastiness. But like literally, like he made this look easy. And so yeah, that was interesting. That was a big mistake, but I did scout Crystal and I said it's not a big deal if I go into it. And I chalked it up. And this might have been, no, mine did not look like that. That's a hole. I lucked out because it was 14,000 or more, and it wasn't a hole. Else that could have ended my trip if that was a hole and I went into it. So there is that. Hell yeah. But yeah, watch this. Yeah, there you go. There's some good jumping. Hell yep. I think it's necessary. This is a river where it's just like you can't not. Like, look at that. You can't not jump enough. Like, that's, and that's kind of interesting. I'm actually going to compare this video to Alex Storzian's Zambezi, because the Zambezi definitely has folding currents like this. And I really think that Puma is something interesting, you know. So from an R1 design, and my brother actually gave me, I think, a Puma. It's like I'm so not excited about air rafts from an R1 perspective because of the weight, and my focus is on surf. And I guess, and so, but in these big water environments, like I did the Grand Canyon with over 150 pounds of gear, and so like weight wasn't an issue, it's more just dynamics. And so, but yeah, it's interesting though. My preference is to do every lap on a river, like day stretch, with as much surf as possible, which needs a light boat, just to make sure you don't like get too tired. Okay, so we're gonna look at, this was a substantial hit, and this is Ryan Huck, and this is fully wedged, fully committed to sitting in one location. And so you get to see what the dynamics are. And so it's good to know that. It's good to know, like, hey, different R1ers are doing different things. And I would say Ryan's doing it with great results. And so there's, back to that intuition. You know, like whatever he's doing intuition-wise, it's actually working out really well. I'm sure there's times where I'm just like, if he does flip, there was one on the Shoshone where it's just like, well, it's obvious, like at some point do you give up, you know, on one side? But even just right there, the fact, like, I would have given up all day, like, oh damn it, sorry about that. Like, how do you even assess? So there is some just like chillness of just, you know, being in environments but yeah, this, you know, keeping things square. But yeah, that is a, because this is what I was talking about. If you're going around the North Fork of the Payette, you really have to do these side moves where you're going down the side of like really, yeah, the side of stuff, where it's definitely trickier because you have all the laterals off the shore, you have eddies, and man, those can really be difficult. Okay, so hell yeah. So that was the clips we were gonna watch on that. And now we're going to watch Ben Lloyd actually tag this. You know, so this is, I consider this stuff to happen like on the, this is cool because this stuff would happen on the Stikine just like, you know, like this. This would be a classic. And you can compare this to like one rapid on the Stikine, you know what I mean? Like this is something that R1ers running the Stikine will have to, you know, do. And like, I don't have a mindset for it, you know, until we actually see footage of being like, okay, like this, and we have a diamond-shaped boat, so you just have the physics, the reality of, like, diamond-shaped boat, this thing's going to turn, it's definitely going to turn that way, the stern is maybe going to pop-tart a little bit, and so we're instantly going for the high side, we're a right-side paddler, oh, but now it looks like we're actually tagging this to the left because we are a right-side paddler. And so there's no risk on shoulder Pop-Tarts, but we are surfing now. And, yeah, and so that's just interesting. And I would do the same thing. You know, this happens R1 where you're just like, okay, one thing happened, now what? You know, you're just like, I'm going into something, now what? Now what? And it's, I think from looking at footage, you can assess what you're looking at and then get faster at recognizing, you know, like even just this one's tricky because it's a lateral surf. Where you hit, now you're moving laterally. When I'm surfing, that is the trippiest thing, where you're actually in one location at one point and then 2 seconds later, now you're over here and you don't realize the implications. You know, but the cool thing is in R1 is like you do have time to actually, you know, take a split second of this and then realize this is a diagonal. If I do surf, I am going to move over there, and then what's the next step? But yeah, this was I really appreciate, this is actually like probably one of my favorite R1 boaters because of the risks that are being taken. And, hopefully they keep being safe, and productive to the R1 community. But hell yeah, and then just the drive too. You have to have that, especially. I mean, even though he's got support, like there's something about the R1 sport of being like taking care of himself. I would say though, if you do have support, always talk about your safety talks to be like, hey, do we know when to give up on the self-rescue, when the secondary rescue could be? That would be very interesting, because like sometimes when I'm boating with other people, I don't like that they don't realize that I'm going to rescue myself, and then you can give up on self-rescue, which is also awful. And so I really appreciate that clip of just sticking with the self-rescue. This is how these Sotar Excaliburs are made. And this, I do like the rocker in the front. It's fairly non-rockered under. But again, like I have nothing to knock, because it's just like, I dig it. It's another R1 boat, and we can see the physics. And I feel like I'm trying to be more objective, to be like, hey, look at what it is, look at what the paddlers are doing with it, and then cataloging that, and then what would a modification mean. And any modification is always pros and cons. It's going to help this, hinder that. And then so hell yeah. So this is kind of a cool video. This shows a meltdown. And so this is Ryan Huck. And this is where R1, I think, you don't need all the volume, especially bow and stern. And look at this. I think this really helps in that. Look, you just melt down and your boat becomes incredibly stable. That's a kind of a spooky one, but is this like the Yakagani? The Sasagani. That's awesome. And it's interesting. I've never ran the Yak. Like I said, sorry about that. I'm a solo boater, so it's like, I don't know. And then antisocial. I just kind of do my own thing. But yeah, it's I definitely recognize that. The Yak has sieves galore. You got, look at this. I mean, that's a sieve. And then this is, am I doing a meltdown? Just the go for it. So yeah, this is the meltdown, and it shows you the scale. And this is the one I wanted to show. This is the that is the Energizer whole hit. And then yeah, but the air on that, so that's definitely catching 3/4 of your boat with air. So it's kind of like there's air under that boat. Hell yeah. So I would like to see Ryan Huck actually catch air if that's a competition. Let's do it. First person to catch air. I don't know, it's like I don't, we have no water because of global warming. But it'd be fascinating to catch air. But the locksaw, when it pops up, I might be able to catch air off the locksaw. So you should catch some air before that. Hell yeah. But that this Energizer hole, this is something that I wouldn't want to do. You know what I mean? But now that you can do it, and I think this is a mandatory thing that you should do for an R1. It's like, especially if you're on the road to the Stikine, like that's what's really cool, is like these are just everyday things. Like you could, because even I remember the first time going down and seeing a kayaker booth that, just like, I thought he was doing a magic trick, because it's just, you're not supposed to be over there. It's a hole. And so that's the cool thing about kind of being a professional out there and analyzing, and you're not looking at this as a or I don't know. Does that make sense? Like the average class 3 runner that's trying to do the upper golly is just looking at this, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because they're not going to be over there. This doesn't exist because they're not going to be over there. For whatever reason, the ejector rock dildo exists because they hit that, which is bizarre because anyway. But yeah, I found that a lot in my boating career, where I just blank out sections of the river because I'm not going to be over there. As long as as long as, like, you know, look at this, easy running. There's no reason you have to be over here or over there. But hell yeah, I mean, that should be an everyday deal. Every R1er should do both of those just as well as Ryan did right there. So props, hell yeah. And but yeah, he loves that meltdown, especially because it's in front of a crowd, and he gets to hike up and do it again. So yeah. Oh, this is the one. Hell yeah. He I'm sorry I stopped it, but he did splat that. He could do that all on his own. That's really wild. And so that's really cool that an R1er could actually get up onto postage by themselves. You should rewatch. That's why I'm making this video, so you can actually support these channels and go rewatch these videos. That's kind of the goal. All right, hell yeah. All right, so let's watch that splat. But yeah, he has a perfect splat. So paddling on the left, splat, and then jump to the right. So that's excellent. I actually really want to try that, but it's intimidating. There's Nate. Heck yeah. So we're going to watch some of his clips. Hell yeah. All right, so Sean Clodfelter, I've been communicating with him. So this is perfect because, like, if he's working up his skills for kind of class 4 stuff, I'll definitely go down to Colorado and boat with him. But hell yeah, this is the first half spin. So the dynamics, well, let's just watch it all the way through. Hell yeah. This is one where it's just like, hell yeah. This is, the dynamics here are we're entering. So yeah, let's watch this all the way through. So right side paddler, we're going to angle to the left. The reason we're going to do that is because now we can pry oriented. So we're going to pry, you can always pry your way back straight, and this shoulder has a nice, like, little kind of a stopping wave, and it keeps you from exiting, right? And so all these dynamics are the same no matter the size of the wave. And so this is the way to keep the straight surf, and then this fits into the category of a straight surf that gets away. You know, he's purposefully letting it turn, but we talked about how if a straight surf kind of gets away on you one way or the other, it sets up a static spin. It usually just spins real well. And then so he's going to do two things here. One, this is the location of the trough. Here's the pile. You can see this wave has no pile. This is actually a very difficult wave to do anything on, which is why it's impressive. And so to jump to the low side trough is helpful. And he's going to jump to the low side trough and reverse. And then it's going to continue the spin around. And then he's pushed up against the pile. And so you're using a few things there of this wedge effect between, you know, you're actually spinning into a wedge, which helps. So that actually wedges in right there, and that helps you stop that turn. But this turn is a first. I've not done actually this turn at all. And so this is the first brand new spin, and you can categorize it. But just went through all the fundamentals with that. So hell yeah. So I really appreciate that. And here's Plagues. Now we're going to move on to drinking more water. I didn't realize I had like 3 hours. I mean, this is just kind of where, like, it's not mania, it's mania. But hell, I wish I was drinking coffee right now. I would be twice as up. But we're going to go to bed, well, probably about 6 o'clock a.m. All right, hell yeah. The Summit Wood Boys. All right, booyah. And I love the R1ers who have different channel names where you don't know who are the paddlers, if it's like one person and then a collaboration of others. But I had the opportunity to run this Nantahala Cascades, and I'm glad I didn't. You know what I mean? This is where, I mean, it looks harrowing. That hit right there, hell yeah, I would have flipped. And then do you have Horns of God? I don't know what you have. No, but like that hit, like that's substantial. Damn. And I just mentioned that from like the unpredictability of it. Not the largest waterfall in the world, but like after you hit that, what are your chances of coming upright? And this is the RMR 10.5 Storm, which is wildly more wide and stable than the, you know, that's where I really appreciate like, I'm actually really excited about Ben Lloyd still running the RMR Thundercloud, because, you know, I think it's a slightly tippier boat than, well, definitely the Storm for sure, and maybe slightly tippier than the Sotar, because we talked about how the railed effect helps. And in my boat, I'm trying to push out the floor, which makes it even hella more tippy and rockered, but trying to get more dynamics out of it that you could use to prevent, you know, do more tricks and stuff like that. And so, but hell yeah. So between the Storm 10.5, because we're going to get to Jeff Waller, and Paddle Cats, because we're going to get to Nate, and High Water Ahead. And, you know, those are your stable beasts, where it's just like, there's no reason not to use something that's the best tool for the job. But like I said, I really like the, and then I think the Puma kind of fits in. So this is what, 8 years ago. So this is Alex Storsion and company running Pumas. And this kind of, I think for most R1ers, this was the first videos that you saw, you know, that were like, hell yeah, this kind of sets the benchmark of like what R1 is. And hell yeah. So those were the, I think this clip I also wanted to show just kind of real manky. I mean, any of these ones that are manky, you can die, especially in R1, because you can fall out so easy. And if you do fall out, you can get deeply wedged. And so those are the fortunate things that people haven't had to experience, R1ing. Now, those are hella serious threats and risks in R1. That's actually the most risky thing, is manky runs, getting dropped out of the boat and then instantly shocked, like shot under a sieves, and just, and hell yeah. Says Alex in the blue boat. And that's what I'm trying to pay attention to too, especially when doing surfing holes, making sure they're not backed up by rocks. It can be the most benign thing that could be the most lethal, because if you fall out, then you just get chalked. But hell yeah. So I appreciate this surf, because we're also going to see from Plague Scroll Productions, we're going to see some RMR Paddle Cat. But we're going to switch right to that. This guy does pretty good. And so you can watch that. But, oh, it's in a different video. So we're going to move on. Yeah, so this is the Paddle Cat, this same surf hole. And you're just going to see the incredible stability. And you have two tubes that are independent, and this is a railed boat. And so, I mean, I think the term cat and paddle cat is a better term for the word railed. But I think railed gets it, even though I probably can't say the word railed without some sort of negative connotation. But this shows where, like, I think I do want a hybrid between railed, but the V-shaped hole that I'm trying to design isn't railed at all. And cat surf real easy. We'll just watch a touch of this, but hell yeah. But I guess the paddle strokes are the same, but you're sitting more centered, and so we see that that has advantage. So there is a few things here, especially in my paddle cat. I recall pushing down on the floor with my feet, being more centered. For sure that helps surf the boat. And so let's take a look at this. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time surfing the RMR Fat Cat. That's what this is. It's 12 feet long, 20-inch tubes. But it's too big for R1 for my needs. Like, if I want something that's almost the playboat of a paddle cat. And see if there's a crossover between paddle cats and you know, like, would you want a round boat with a V-shaped hole, which I'm trying to design right now, or would I just want a small paddle cat that's completely railed? Because both boats, I think I want to function very nearly the same. And I even have sorry about that. I have a design where you essentially have the V-shaped hole with a gap in the middle, and then it becomes kind of a paddle cap. How big that gap is, it could be 6 inches, but it is something, and so it is railed in that regard. But you can still edge the other completely out of the water. So it'd be basically a paddle cat that when you sit on one side, the other tube can release out of the water, and all that has to have is just another tube underneath. You just have to have a flat spot and then angles that is a V-shaped hole. All right, and I have abs. Okay, yeah, hell yeah. So this is again, this is one of the rowdiest R1ers. Hell yeah. And I think one of, the only documented one I've seen that has, this is really cool footage because you have to have someone else documenting this and capturing footage, but this should be a staple. All R1ers should be able to hit this. It's, it's at your own risk because I know it's a fairly smooth wall through here. You can get chalked up for days, and if you go deep right up against the seam, hopefully you spill out. But I think it's a staple to actually get in there. And hell yeah. Because it's stuff like that this puts R1 on the map. And it for sure makes hella people jealous that if you haven't been up there. You know what I mean? I'm trying to stir the controversy of being like, hell yeah. Like if you haven't... Like I've talked about other moves on the Golly that I want to do. But this is the move to get... You know what I mean? This response. So hell yeah. And well deserved on that. Oh, this is brutal. Yeah, hell yeah. And there should be other footage of... Yeah, there it is. Yep, so we're going to watch a little bit of this. There's one hole that he surfs in this 10. I think this is the 10-5 storm, but... Yeah, that looked like a brutal hit. Okay, so there's, but yeah, just, this is also shows like the, hey, like I know what I'm doing, and then just chill, whatever. Even that last little, like, what? That's where you get lucky too. And so luck is instinct, and that's what we kind of talked about, how like if you're an instinctual boater, you might be years ahead, because, yeah, I look at my older footage of being like, hey, maybe sometimes I was more instinctual than I am now. I can go to the surf wave and waste all my time trying to do one little thing that, is, like, actually wrong to even do. So, hell yeah. And I'm going to get to it. We're going to go to this hole. And it's next after this, so hell yeah. Sorry about that. It's this one. Okay, so this is Slap Creek. You determine how big this hole is. It's probably not the biggest hole, but hell yeah, it's a big surf. You know what I mean? And consequential. You're just like, I don't want to be surfing right now. But again, good hide siding, and this boat is fairly stable. And so this is where if like you're getting into R1ing, and you do want to be in these high dynamic environments, this Storm 10.5 could be the boat for you. It's definitely more resembles a paddle cat in size and stature. So now we're going to actually take a look at this hole because compare it to holes on the Stikine. Is this the biggest thing ever? No, but just the consequence. This hole exists, you get stuck in it, and you still have consequence downstream. You wouldn't want to fall out. And so it really brings up the question is just like from an R1 design, what's going to be the most stable thing in a hole? Some of my designs maybe aren't the most stable. Maybe they are useful because they actually V-shape hole and you actually don't get this, and so you get more dynamics. But there is a trade-off. Because the second you get V-shaped hole, you're going to be more stuck down there. If you have a railed boat, like if this is a paddle cat, you do exactly what it's doing right now. This high tube is surfing high. But I guess with these boats, once they take in water, that's totally full with water now. So maybe all bets are off. But that's, yeah, so it's kind of fascinating. I am trying to work on designs that won't take in water into a compartment. Like in this, so for this, if this was, and you do your own, compare this to the RMR Thundercloud. Two different R1ers, high siding a hole, and this one is more squarish and boxy. It's more rounded on the tips. The other one is a diamond-shaped boat. So I run a diamond-shaped boat. The Sotar probably is a diamond-shaped boat, but the RMR Thundercloud for sure is diamond-shaped. And so when you do impact the hole, that's where you do get toastered. And so I'm just showing that this boat is stable, and you might want that. And so just depending on what you are wanting, and I think if you're willing to go whatever, if you're categorizing yourself of being like, this is what I want to do and this is the rafting I want to take on, then you should choose your tool for the job. And I kind of made a R1, like what raft should you get, but that was all prior to actually, kind of doing this study and figuring out what are the physics behind this and what are actually the pros and cons. And I think that is kind of what I'm getting pretty decent at. All right, here is probably a newer boater running the upper galley. And so you can kind of see maybe just like, you know what I mean? Doing the thing, maybe little hesitations, but, doing the thing and keeping it. Hell yeah. And booyah, yeah, and then the tip over, yeah. I dig the paddle tap. Like I'm gonna tap that, however possible. So hell yeah. But I just thought that was cool, and I'm just going by the haven't gotten a lot of R1 missions, but hell yeah, just kind of interesting. But there is this deep mindset from the people that I've posted, and I've been posting kind of the ones that probably want to be in the limelight, or is that what they call it? The spotlight. I don't know my cliches. All right, so hell yeah, and then we're going to finish with High Water Ahead. So Jeff Waller is with the High Water Ahead Productions. And this is Nate, do I know his last name? Hell yeah. But yeah, we got to talk at postage too. I'm just like, hell yeah. He's like, you're the one that makes videos. No, it's just like, yeah, this is like, so my 2 cents is like, I dig this operation because it's making rafting cool, and there is a desire to R1. They don't have to R1, they can just do R2, which is always cool. But because, they have Jeff Waller on the team, and Nate, this is his first major R1 after a year, maybe just only a year of R1ing. He's got videos of running the locksaw and then taking on the upper wind. And the go for itness, hell yeah, is there. This, like I mentioned me, it's just like, well, I boat solo. I'm not part of a team where it's just like we're all signed up for this, and so I can kind of set my own. But in that, I just think I'm going to get unlucky also boating by myself and doing runs like these. And I might even get unlucky boating with other people. And so, but hell yeah, that was a real crispy. And really showing the Star Slice, very capable boat. And the Star Slice, man, you don't have a deep well to sit in, but still doing a really good job. But yeah, just these boats. I mean, paddle cats. How do you look at a paddle cat and be like, in a round boat, why wouldn't we want exactly that? It's a railed boat, and so yeah, so hell yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so this was one of the big R1s. Yeah, and it's just really cool to see that I mean, there's all these firsts out there of being like, has an R1 done this river? Probably not. I mean, there's like every kayak has gone down a ton of rivers, and that's it. So hell yeah. Yeah, and then we'll end with this, because this is a really cool R1 drop. So this is a big drop. That's a big drop. And then a big straight point, and then, just really doing a good job hanging, like just centering and hitting that drop nice and centered. So hell yeah. So that's the one we were going to end it with. There's about 4 boats that come through before the R2 and the R1. But that's it. That's the video. And so we did it. It's 4:38 a.m. on my side. We'll see how I crop this. I don't think I'm going to put too much effort into it. Just because I think it's useful information. And I think it's all, it's my opinion. No, I'm just joking. Trying to be Gear Garage. He R1'd. I didn't want to put him in here just because it was like a test that he was. I don't want to giggle. All right, hell yeah. But yeah, there you go. There's the hit. All right, hell yeah. So I really appreciate this High Water Head Productions because they're making rafting cool, R1 and cool. I mean, yeah, like obviously, I feel like now I'm not gonna say anything. I'm doing my own thing, and hell yeah, I'm glad I am. So hell yeah, if you like this video, don't do anything. Just go to bed before 6 a.m. And hell yeah. All right, and guess what? This video was for Jack Taylor. He's alive. He broke his collarbone mountain biking. Damn. Yep. But the collarbone heals. I said my dad broke his, and it healed. And so hopefully he's just like my dad. No, it's interesting. Like my dad doesn't like the ER, and so he didn't get proper care at all. It broke in 3 places. It was like 3 separate pieces, and they all just kind of jaggedly healed together. Our whole family was really worried. We were just like, that sounds awful. And he showed us the x-ray. He shouldn't do that. If he wants to do his own thing, don't double down and make us like, oh, that looks... But it just healed. Yeah, the jagged shards like kind of just did their thing and shrunk or calcified over. But yeah, it was super weird. Maybe it's even stronger, but I'm sure he's got good proper care. So hell yeah, and it heals up good. Maybe, probably. And it'll probably heal in the time that you watch this video. All right, Jack Taylor, thanks for being a fan. Booyah.